The next day, at dawn, Era was kneeling by the bed, her fair little hand lightly nudging a sleeping Feng Hao. "Master, wake up, didn't you mention having important matters to attend to today?" Hearing her voice, Feng Hao snapped his eyes open. His brain was in standby mode for quite a while before it began to operate normally. Yes, today was the day of the forced task. He had asked Era to wake him up early. He sat up from the bed and whispered, "Era, how did you get in?" Usually, Era knocked from outside the door and would not directly enter Feng Hao's room. "Master, I knocked on the door, but you didn't get up. I was worried that it would delay your schedule for today, so I came in," Era said in a pitiful tone. He had fallen asleep rather late last night, probably why he didn't hear the knock. "Right, I have something to do today." Feng Hao stretched his body to wake himself up quickly. Era immediately helped Feng Hao dress up, and after a simple washing up, they immediately walked out of the Lord's wooden house. It was still early, probably around 5 in the morning. The Guardian's attack was approximately 3 hours away. At that moment, Fireblade, dressed in the bloodthirsty set, walked over holding the bloodthirsty blade in his hand. He declared loudly, "My lord, a strange cave was found in the forest 1 kilometer outside the territory. But it is protected by a shield that prevents us from dismantling or attacking it." The map around his territory was engraved in Feng Hao's mind. These sudden appearance of mysterious caves protected by shields were most likely where the Guardians would appear. "All right, I understand." Feng Hao nodded. The number of enemies in this mission depended on the amount of resources gathered. Feng Hao's thousands of undead laborers, working tirelessly day and night, had successfully increased the number of enemies to 120,000, let alone the regional channel. Even in the world channel, nobody probably had more than Feng Hao. After reporting, Fireblade returned to his post. Meanwhile, Feng Hao headed to the barracks to increase the number of soldiers. First, he went to the Undead Mage Tower. "Do you want to consume the wriggling spine to recruit undead mages?" He set the recruitment number to 100 and clicked recruit. 100-fold amplification triggered, successfully recruited 10,100 undead mages. In a blink of an eye, 10,000 proud undead mages appeared before Feng Hao. A dense sea of white bones. Feng Hao continued to craft 10,100 pieces of the wooden root magic wand, 10,100 suits of leather armor, and equipped all the undead mages. Combining with the mages recruited last time, the territory now had a total of 10,201 undead mages. "Pick up the equipment and all ascend the city wall," Feng Hao said loudly. All the undead mages silently put on the equipment and directly went up the city wall. Next, Feng Hao continued to recruit infantry. The skeleton spearmen and skeleton foot soldiers were expanded to 200,000 each. As for the skeleton trolls, because the recruitment process required troll stones, he only recruited 5,000. These 50 troll stones were exchanged from the channel in the past few days. In an instant, the whole city was crowded. Even the roof of the buildings was covered with skeleton soldiers. This was why Feng Hao recruited early in the morning, instead of last night. Otherwise, arranging so many soldiers late at night would be difficult. "Fireblade," Feng Hao called out loudly. "My lord." Fireblade made his way through the crowd and came over. "You will be in command of these soldiers. Station them outside the territory." "Yes, my lord." Fireblade led the skeletons away with a wave of his big hand. Once all the skeletons had left the territory, Feng Hao continued to make weapons and armor. He had the skeletons transport them outside using carts so they could equip the soldiers. With the troops and equipment sorted out, Feng Hao proceeded to make defenses. Yesterday, he had traded his iron spears for the blueprint for the defenses. Seeing that a big battle was imminent, he decided to craft them all. Wooden barricade, wood 12, hemp rope 8. The materials were not very expensive and were all basic materials. He set the production quantity to 100. 100-fold amplification triggered, obtained 10,100 wooden barricades. In an instant, a large number of wooden barricades appeared again. Wooden barricade. Category: obstacle equipment. Description: sharpen the top of the wooden post. Fix it crosswise to hinder the movement of enemies and horses. Feng Hao had seen this type of obstacle in movies. In some films, bandits set up such roadblocks on the roads. hindering passage for anyone who did not pay tolls or blocking cavalry. This was considered a simple and effective tool. He arranged for hands to transport all the wooden barricades outside the city and set them up on the inevitable path of the enemies. "My lord, everything has been arranged," Fireblade reported again. "There are no problems here either with the mages." Nelson also came forward. Feng Hao nodded, and continued, "Fireblade, scout around the territory again to see if there are any other caves. If there are, notify me immediately." There was still some time left before the start. "Yes, my lord, I will go immediately." Fireblade quickly left. Feng Hao also went back into his room and entered God's presence state. The next second, he possessed a skeleton foot soldier in Pigmen village. At this time, Petty was leading the pig-headed humans and had just returned to the village from outside. "Petty," Feng Hao called out. Petty, who was in the middle of a conversation, paused, and immediately realized that it was Feng Hao. He hurried forward. "Great Lord, are there any strange caves or special buildings that suddenly appeared around the village?" Feng Hao asked. This had just occurred to him. The compulsory task was clearly targeted at the lords and would not affect their native villages. But since the Pigmen village had become a subordinate village of Feng Hao, it was unclear whether it might be affected. I'm not sure about that. What kind of cave does the Great Lord want to find? I will immediately arrange for someone to start searching." Petty thought that Feng Hao wanted to find a certain cave. It seemed that the people of the Pigmen village, whether patrolling or working outside, had not noticed anything unusual. "No, it's all right. If there is any danger, abandon the village and flee towards the main territory," Feng Hao instructed. Although Petty was still somewhat confused, he nodded in agreement instinctively. The next second, without waiting for Petty to ask in detail, Feng Hao deactivated his possession. The soul fire in the pupils of the skeleton foot soldier gradually extinguished. In the territory, Feng Hao walked out of the wooden house again and ascended the city wall on the west side. On the city wall were 10,000 undead mages holding wooden root magic wands. Below the city wall were over 200,000 skeleton soldiers awaiting orders in perfect order. Moving forward, densely connected wooden barricades could be seen, while others used barricades as roadblocks to stop approaching teams or block cavalry. Feng Hao used them as if they were free. Looking down from the city wall, it looked like the Great Wall made of mahjong tiles out of boredom when he was a child. When everything was ready, the system prompt appeared again. "The task officially starts, good luck to you." At the same time, a long-sounding horn suddenly echoed in the sky. Feng Hao sat on his chair, immediately activated God's presence, and possessed a skeleton giant bat. He controlled the giant bat to fly into the sky, heading towards the direction of the cave. The view from up in the air was more expansive. To Feng Hao's relief, enemies only appeared from the west, with no signs of enemies from other directions. This allowed him to focus all his attention on the west, while minimally deploying troops for defense in other directions. Feng Hao led the giant bat swiftly forward. He finally caught sight of the strange cave mentioned by Fireblade. Rather than a cave, it was more appropriate to call it a giant teleportation gate. At this moment, a large curtain of light formed in the teleportation gate, and a massive number of monsters walked out of it. Marble Giant Lizard Guardian, Tier 2, Nature Warrior Guardian, Tier 3, Nature Archer Guardian, Tier 3, 1, Nature Mage Guardian, Tier 4. An enormous crowd trickled out of the curtain of light. They were not made of flesh, but rather were humanoid creatures woven from vines. They held various weapons in their hands, stubbornly advancing towards the territory. Whoosh! Just then, an arrow was shot at him. Immediately after, countless arrows came shooting towards him. The skeleton giant bat, which Feng Hao was controlling, was turned into a pincushion of arrows in a moment. Awakening from his seat, Feng Hao glared coldly towards the west. "My lord, how are things?" Nelson asked quietly from the side. "They're here." No sooner had the words left his mouth, a horde of nature guardians emerged from the forest at the end of his line of sight. From a few, they became hundreds and then tens of thousands until his entire view was filled with enemies. There wasn't much formation or lining up. The next second, all the advancing guardians roared, lifting their weapons and launching their attack. Tens of thousands of forest guardians, like a surging wave, came charging crazily forward, hacking down the barriers before them, clearing all obstacles. For a moment, the entire area outside the territory was filled with the figures of enemies. So many. Nelson's face also changed, even though he already knew the numbers. His heart still filled with some worry when he saw so many enemies with his own eyes. "It's all right, get ready, they can't win," Fang Hao said coldly. Nelson took a serious look at Fang Hao, firmly planting his magic wand into the ground, and said in a hoarse voice, "Mage Corps, prepare for battle." Tens of thousands of undead mages raised their wands, beginning to accumulate magic. Following this, streaks of dark magic orbs flew out, exploding within the attacking guardians. In an instant, a large number of guardians were blasted away, suffering heavy casualties. The enemy's long-range troops also began to retaliate. The archer guardians and mage guardians aimed at the city wall, shooting arrows and magic missiles. In a moment, magic and arrows were whisking through the sky above the battlefield. Of course, Fang Hao wasn't idle either. Identifying an enemy concentration area, he immediately released the Starfire skill carried by the Starfire wand. The next second, fiery red meteors rained down from the sky above everyone, smashing into the ground. With the earth-shaking impact, all enemies within the range were almost completely annihilated. The magic had a fire attribute, and proved particularly effective against wooden species. The spread of fire killed a large number of enemies. Below the city walls, melee guardians, having cleared all the roadblocks along the way, finally charged to the foot of the city. The skeleton spearmen tightened their formation, their shields forming an unbreakable iron wall. Long spearheads emanating a cold aura emerged from behind this shield wall, pointing directly forward. Facing the sharp spears, the melee guardians showed no fear, relentlessly ramming their way forward. Their weapons hacked on the shield wall, but their bodies had already been pierced by the spears. For a moment, light green blood soaked the ground beneath their feet. Woo! At this moment, Fang Hao, standing atop the city wall, sounded the war horn. A faint ripple enveloped all the skeleton soldiers, enhancing their mobility and attack power. At the same time, he executed the mist wrap skill. The battlefield below the city walls was instantly shrouded in a thick mist, engulfing the entire battlefield. Mist wrap was a skill that Fang Hao had recently learned. He hadn't found a use for it until today, when he realized how useful it really was. The fog covered the entire battlefield, reducing the enemy's visible range by 75% and their morale. However, his soldiers were unaffected. This greatly increased the advantages of his army. "Advance!" shouted Fireblade, the leader below the city. Under the cover of the mist, the spear and shield wall began to resist the enemy's attack, pushing forward bit by bit. The spears cleared the path ahead, and the enemies who broke into the ranks were slain by the sword and shield soldiers behind them. Like a meat grinder, they were killing enemies far superior to themselves. Boom, boom, boom. Dense magic bullets exploded at the foot of the city wall. After assessing the entire situation, Fang Hao immediately descended the city wall, found a quiet place, and cast God's presence. The next second, a ghostly blue soul fire rose in the pupils of the skeleton giant bats. There were 10,000 skeleton giant bats, which Fang Hao had arranged in the jungle outside the battlefield before the battle began. Now, he cast God's presence and ascended into the sky with 2 skeleton giant bats. After circling around, they flew to the enemy rear. Diving down, their massive, sharp claws directly struck a mage. Behind them, 10,000 giant bats did the same, diving down and fighting with the mages. Skeleton giant bats are simplified versions of skeleton bat wolves. They weren't as formidable. Otherwise, Fang Hao would have preferred to drag them into the air, before tearing them to pieces. Mages have high attack power, but their defense isn't prominent. Against the attack of the skeleton giant bats, they suffered severe casualties quickly. Once the mage defenders were wiped out, the flock of skeleton giant bats immediately changed direction and charged towards the archer defenders who were still attacking the city wall. Below the city wall, the melee troops. The melee defenders launched an even more frenzied charge. The giant lizard defenders ran quickly, their bodies slamming fiercely against the shield wall like battering rams. Indifferent to the spears piercing their bodies, as long as they could break the shield wall. Fireblade moved forward with the troops. He casually slaughtered 2 charging giant lizards. After a fresh assessment of the battlefield, the soul flame in his pupils flickered non-stop. Kill! Fireblade's low roar resounded from the formation. The next second, the shields in the first row opened like gates, and a red flame blade light flew out, shattering hundreds of enemies in front. Then, Fireblade, with his long knife, rushed out of the formation to kill the enemies. Behind him, 5,000 skeleton trolls followed closely. Under Fireblade's lead, they were like a sharp blade, piercing straight into the formation, starting a massacre. The moment the shield wall opened, the entire troop was like a lion that had been lying dormant for years, fiercely pouncing on the enemy. And the spear formation behind was advancing rapidly, cleaning up in their wake. By that time most of the enemies were killed or injured. The battle was nearing its end. These defenders felt no fear, they knew not of retreat. This accelerated the progress of the battle. When Fireblade pierced the last defender with his sword, the battle ended entirely. Lord, all the enemies have been eliminated. Fang Hao nodded slightly. Very good, Fireblade, you've worked hard. Organize the cleanup of the battlefield, collect all the spoils. Yes, sir. Under Fireblade's command, all of the skeleton soldiers spread out to collect the spoils of the battlefield. After the death of the natural guardian, its corpse, along with its weaponry and equipment, visibly withered and dispersed at a rapid speed, like a dying plant. There were no remnants of a wriggling spine, nor any weapons or equipment left behind. What dropped instead was a variety of rare materials. Natural gems, mithril, essence of magic, and so on. The cleanup of the battlefield proceeded swiftly, and all sorts of resources were promptly sorted and presented before Fang Hao. My lord, all the spoils of war have been collected, please review them. Fang Hao descended the city wall, taking stock of the loot lying before him. Acquired: tough wood 13,552, mithril 2,424, trace of the earth 1,345, trace of the forest 5,422, natural gem 721, trace of divinity 12, natural essence 572, rich essence 451, essence of magic 220, perfect essence 32. These 120,000 enemies, they sure didn't drop too little. The materials that have always been difficult to gather were acquired in such large quantities all at once. The material resources dropped by the enemy. These scarce resources are even more valuable than their equipment. They significantly hasten the improvement and development of territorial strength. Just that the drop rate is a bit low. From 120,000 enemies, only these few were dropped. Perfect essence and trace of divinity are only in double digits. The highest amount, 13,000, is for the basic production materials. Transport all to the warehouse. Fang Hao gave another order. The skeletons obeyed, hauling all the spoils of war to the warehouse. Just as Fang Hao was about to return to the city and use the resources to upgrade the buildings, sudden turmoil arose on the eastern side of his territory. Thick black smoke billowed up into the sky, snaking into the heavens like a giant black serpent. This thick smoke was a sight Fang Hao had seen during the last compulsory mission. It was Zhang Bin calling for reinforcements, a way to alert nearby lords of his location. It seems that Zhang Bin is once again struggling to fend off his mission adversaries. Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords and, as expected, saw numerous calls for help. I can't hold them off anymore. Can anyone nearby come to my aid? These guardians are too savage. Damn it, my soldiers are all dead. I'm buying soul crystals. Anyone selling, please hurry. Phew, I managed to complete the mission. Although I lost a few soldiers, thankfully my territory remains intact. Big Shot, can you see the smoke signals have ignited? Could you possibly help me? The number of natural guardians was determined by the amount of resources gathered within the Lord's territory over a period of 14 days. The faster the territory develops and the quicker resources are harvested, the more enemies appear in the territory. The number of your enemies, in some sense, corresponds with your comprehensive strength. Even so, many lords simply couldn't defeat their adversaries and cried for help incessantly in the channel. Among them, one particular call for help via smoke signal was from Zhang Bin. Fang Hao considered for a moment, then decided to visit Zhang Bin's territory and harvest another batch of rare resources. No, he was going to lend a hand to a fellow transmigrator and help him through this difficult situation. Nelson, I'm leaving Fireblade in your charge, I need to step out for a while, said Fang Hao. Very well, my lord. Following Nelson's response, skeleton soldiers were immediately deployed to clean up the outskirts of the territory. Destroyed barricades were cleared out while those unscathed were repositioned on the roads surrounding the territory. Once everything was arranged, Fang Hao returned to his room to cast God's presence and embody a skeletal soldier. Accompanied by Fireblade and 20,000 skeletal soldiers, he headed towards Zhang Bin's territory. At Zhang Bin's territory, the level 2 city wall was still made of raw wood. Zhang Bin and his militia were resisting the attack of the natural guardians. Accepting a rock passed to him by a peasant, Zhang Bin heaved it down at the attackers below the wall. Swearing loudly, "Take this, you bastards. My development has been miserable enough. And you still choose to retaliate." Below the city wall, more than 100 natural guardians were attempting to burst open the city gates and invade the city. The weapon in hand reduced the city gate to a sorry state. It was only a matter of time before it would be breached. Zhang Bin was frustrated in his heart. He wished he had used all his resources to upgrade the city wall if he had known about the compulsory challenge. Right now, the city wall was only at level 2, mainly constructed from raw wood logs. Whoosh, 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 just as Zhang Bin continued to hurl stones at the enemies below the city wall. Several arrows whistled towards him. Thud, the sound of an arrow penetrating flesh. An arrow had run right through Zhang Bin's shoulder. And due to inertia, he fell from the city wall in an extremely embarrassing fashion. My lord, are you all right? The farmer quickly helped Zhang Bin up, his face full of anxiety. Damn it, Zhang Bin roared in pain, clutching his wound tightly with his other hand. Blood seeped through his fingers, staining the ground a dark red. Forget about me, keep defending. Zhang Bin barked through gritted teeth. The situation was too critical for any distractions. The farmers held the city gates with all their might, while the militia on the city wall were both trying to evade the ranged attacks from the enemies while throwing all kinds of objects down at them. Even so, it wasn't long before the militia were getting hit by arrows and the city gate was on the verge of collapse. Zhang Bin once again made an appeal in the channel, but his 10 posts had already been used up. All his messages were drowned out by the sea of information. Sigh, if only those skeletons could come again. At this moment, he remembered the compulsory task from last time, when he and the militia could no longer hold out. A group of skeletons suddenly appeared and killed off the attacking beast horde. If only that skeleton army could appear again and fight these nature guardians. My lord, the city gate can't hold any longer. The farmer shouted loudly. Prepare for a fight to death, Zhang Bin said as he picked his iron spear with his one good hand. Everyone gathered together, preparing for a last-ditch effort. Fang Hao and Fireblade, leading a large squad, sprang out from the forest. In the distance, Zhang Bin's territory was still under attack by the nature's guardians. Facing an attack from nearly 100 nature guardians, Zhang Bin's soldiers could only continuously defend, relying on the city wall to execute simple counterattacks. Fireblade, kill all the nature guardians under the city walls, Fang Hao said. Yes, my lord. Fireblade nodded and led 10,000 skeleton soldiers in a direct frontal attack. Fireblade took the lead, the bloodthirsty blade in his hand acting like the scythe of the death god, shattering all enemies before him. The skeleton sea was even more overwhelming, drowning the enemies. The battle was over at the first encounter. It took 2 hours to get here, but the battle lasted no more than 5 minutes. My lord, they are all destroyed. There are some humans in the city. Do you want all of them killed? Fireblade stepped forward and asked loudly. On the city wall, the whole body of Zhang Bin and his soldiers shook upon hearing these words. They nearly collapsed. First, clean up the battlefield. Gather all the dropped resources, said Fang Hao, glancing at the people on the city walls and giving out orders. The skeletons immediately scattered and began to collect the loot dropped on the ground. Unfortunately, the enemies on Zhang Bin's territory were too few, and only 42 rare resources were collected. For this, the 2-hour journey seemed not worth it. Fang Hao was not satisfied. Open the gate, Fang Hao said in a low voice. Zhang Bin remained silent, not knowing whether he should open the gate or not. Boom! Fireblade didn't give Zhang Bin time to think. With a slash of his blade, the city gate split into two and crashed down. Zhang Bin was shocked and quickly snapped out of his stupor. He led the villagers to rush down the city wall and shouted, Honorable sir, please don't kill us. We are willing to follow your orders. Zhang Bin was not a fool, knowing the other party possessed the strength to kill them all. Yet there was a clear difference between the skeletons before him and the nature guardians who had just attacked. These skeletons could communicate, they could negotiate, giving him a chance for negotiation. If he wanted to survive, he had to show an attitude of willful submission. In other words, this world was too dangerous, and relying on a powerful being might not be a bad thing. Fang Hao strode into the city, glancing at Zhang Bin who was cautiously nearby. He walked straight towards the warehouse. It was not his first time visiting Zhang Bin's territory, and he was very familiar with the locations of the warehouse and the Lord's wooden house. Upon arriving at the warehouse, he gathered up all the gemstone materials. Then he rummaged through the Lord's wooden house. After finding nothing worth scouring, he went straight out of the other party's territory and left. Zhang Bin stayed kneeling on the spot, with a group of militiamen watching the skeleton army gradually leave. He was a bit bewildered. What was the meaning of this? Did they just leave? Lord, your injuries? A militiaman whispered a reminder. Ah, right, damn, my hand. The oppressive force of the skeleton army was so immense that the moment the city gate was broken open, he thought he was about to die. The fear of death made his arrow-pierced arm feel less painful. But when he was reminded, Zhang Bin immediately felt a heart-wrenching pain. The villagers immediately helped Zhang Bin towards the Lord's wooden house. The others began repairing the city gate. Having left Zhang Bin's territory, Fang Hao dismissed his disguise. With Fireblade leading, he didn't need to constantly use God's presence to navigate. As he left the room, he saw Era preparing dinner. After a busy day, and not eating lunch, dinner was served early. Master, please wait a moment, dinner will be ready soon. Era whispered from the kitchen. Fang Hao walked out to the empty area on the right side of the wooden house. Today, he had obtained a large amount of rare materials, and the buildings that could not be built due to insufficient materials in the past now met the construction conditions. Rejuvenation Spring Well, Purple. Category: Special Building. Construction required: Hardened Wood 1000, Stone Bricks 2200, Natural Gem 22, Trace of the Forest 12, Trace of Spring Water 10, Essence of Magic 8. Description: Life is nurtured in nature, the spring of life, reminiscent of the taste of mother's milk. The Rejuvenation Spring was the reward for the first person in the world to upgrade the Lord's wooden house when Fang Hao first crossed over. Today, all those complicated building materials have finally been gathered. The construction conditions were met. He chose a location closer to the Lord's Hall and began construction. A light purple glow slowly rose, gradually forming the shape of a small pool. Plants began to emerge from the ground, leaves spreading and flowers blooming. Flowers hovered above the pool, condensing dewdrops which fell into the center of the pool. It took a full 20 minutes. The well was finally completed, the whole building looked like a flower garden pool. A green glow rose, emitting a faint vitality, full of beautiful flowers. Rejuvenation Spring Well. Effect: Rejuvenation Spring. Water production: 1 unit per hour. Well water capacity: 50 units. Rejuvenation Spring. The blessed spring water of nature. Drinking it can heal certain injuries, restore spiritual power, and long-term consumption can enhance physical constitution. Description: Life is nurtured in nature, the spring of life, reminiscent of the taste of mother's milk. Mother's milk? This description is beginning to sound more and more like an advertisement for baby formula. And it's the kind of formula that's sweetened with saccharin. The phosphorescent pool is so clear, it's like a mirror reflecting the surroundings. The nearby flowers form dewdrops like pearls, which fall into the pool and create exquisite water splashes. The rejuvenation spring in the pool is not the pool water. Rather, it is formed by the dewdrops that have accumulated from the hovering flowers above. The most important part is the healing effect of this rejuvenation spring. This spring water is a simplified version of a healing potion. Drinking a cup can treat certain injuries. Feng Hao had a bottle of healing potion in his hand before, but he later gave it to Dong Jiayue for emergency use. Now that his territory has a rejuvenation spring, it serves as a form of security for him. Moreover, consuming this regularly can enhance one's physique. This is truly a great thing. Curing diseases when sick and strengthening the body when healthy, isn't this better than health supplements? Wow, it's so beautiful. It would be even better if we raise a couple of fish in this pool, Era excitedly said after seeing the rejuvenation spring. Feng Hao was startled and quickly said, "This is the rejuvenation spring. We'll need it to cure us when we're sick in the future. We cannot mess around with the water in it." He feared that Era would put a couple of fish into it the next day. By that time, who could drink the water if it smelled fishy? "Oh, right, Master. I have prepared dinner. It's ready." Era suddenly remembered what she came to do. To ask Feng Hao to have dinner. "Let's go. From now on, we'll drink the water from here. It's also beneficial to our health," they said as they walked towards the wooden cabin. "Is the spring water that amazing?" Era asked somewhat doubtfully. She came from a small orc village and had never heard of water that could strengthen the body. "Of course, you'll know in the future." The pair arrived at the dining table and Era began serving today's delicacies. Since Feng Hao won big today and obtained a lot of rare resources, today's dinner was rather sumptuous. Vegetable soup, steamed fish, and ribs. While Feng Hao was enjoying his meal, he once again opened the channel. At this point, most lords had finished their tasks. "Finally, it's over. God, I almost died. This world is so fucking messed up. The soldiers I recruited painstakingly died by half, with the remaining all injured. It feels like I'm back to square one. Stop complaining." At noon, there were calls for help everywhere on the screen. It's good enough to survive. Trading special resources for healing items. DM if you have any. Urgent, stop dreaming. Where can we find healing items now? I've already laid down, waiting to die slowly. Feng Hao's eyes lit up. Many lords or their soldiers were injured in today's trial mission. Yet till now, no healing potions had been seen for sale. There were some medicinal herbs, but the healing effects of these herbs were really poor. Wouldn't his rejuvenation spring present a big business opportunity? With this thought in mind, Feng Hao immediately posted his rejuvenation spring for sale. Trader. Feng Hao. Registered item. Rejuvenation spring. Quantity. 30 units. Requirement per unit. 30 rare resources. Remark. For special items, blueprints, please PM. Oddly enough, you can take a sip or even a half sip for a normal drink. But for trading, it must be listed based on 1 unit as the basis. It can't be sold by the sip or by the cup. The trading requirement is also very clear. This time, everyone got a certain number of rare resources. Even Zhang Bin's territory had 40 units of resources for sale. He didn't want any other resources but the rare ones held by others. Though 30 units is not a small amount, the majority of the lords can afford it. Besides, those who need it are the seriously injured ones. When life itself is hanging by a thread, would you still care about the cost? Feng Hao checked the listing information once again and sent out the trade details. In the regional channel, the chatter instantly decreased. The listed rejuvenation springs were quickly being bought off. Within less than 2 minutes, all 30 units of rejuvenation springs were sold. Then the regional channel began to buzz again. Damn, that's badass, he has healing items already? 30 units of rare resources, this is outright robbery. After all the hard work today, it's all gone to him. Damn, if you think it's expensive, sell yours to me. I'll give you 30 units of resources. Everyone buying is injured, almost on the brink of death. Who would care about the price? What are you talking about? What healing item? What resources? What is Lord Fang Hao selling now? Stop looking. It's a kind of spring water for healing, but it's already sold out. I just private messaged Lord Fang Hao. The supply of this spring water is limited. He can only sell about 30 units a day. Which spring water? Where did you get this spring water? This time's mandatory task. Almost every lord had suffered some degree of injury. Everyone was well aware that in this world, struggling to survive every second, an injury could indicate a catastrophe. Though the injury wouldn't worsen, it would certainly slow down their activities. The spring water, capable of restoring health, played an irreplaceable role. Nevertheless, the rejuvenation spring well could only produce so much water. He couldn't afford to sell all at once in case he and Era faced special situations. Therefore, when facing those who wanted to trade privately, he could only tell them, "The quantity is limited, you'll have to wait until tomorrow if you want to purchase." Most of them were disappointed, cursing themselves for being slow and not being able to acquire the spring water. After dinner, it was still early. Era was washing the dishes and Fang Hao went straight to the tailor shop. From afar, he could see the skeleton tailors busily at work. Seeing Fang Hao approach, the tailor Soy greeted him, "Good evening, my lord." "Good evening, when will the batch of clothes we talked about yesterday be finished?" Fang Hao asked. "My lord, we're rushing for it, it's estimated to take another 2 days, Soy replied. Fang Hao wasn't in a hurry, he just asked casually as he was here. "All right, I plan to build some houses for you for rest and work. What are your thoughts on this?" Fang Hao voiced his intentions. These skull tailors were somewhat different from ordinary skeleton soldiers. Skeleton soldiers only mechanically execute tasks, they don't have independent thinking. Although these tailors were recruited, they clearly had their own independent thinking. They couldn't be treated as ordinary skeletons, and needed to provide some places for rest and work. Having over 100 people weaving under the open sun wasn't the ideal scenario. "Thank you for your kindness, my lord. It would be best if you could create a place for us to work and rest," Soy spoke frankly. The current environment indeed needed some improvement. All right, Fang Hao took out the Book of Lords and switched to the construction page. He had received the blueprints for civilian houses yesterday, which could be used to build houses for the skeleton tailors. After discussing it with Soy, they decided to build 30 houses and a large factory. Level 1 house. Wood 300, stone 180, thatch 120, hemp rope 80. Description: it can be used to build ordinary civilian houses, with no special features. Having completed the building, he upgraded all the houses to level 4. Houses were transformed from ordinary log cabins into 2-story wooden buildings. They also changed from providing shelter to 2 people to housing 4. However, it exceeded the number of log cabins needed by the skeleton tailors. But that doesn't matter, the territory is vast, and everyone can live more comfortably. Soy of the Undead clan's loyalty to you increased by 5 points, current loyalty 85. Har, the tailor of the Undead clan's loyalty to you increased by 5 points, current loyalty 75. Undead tailor. Having the houses built, the loyalty of the tailors all increased. Soy, as the captain, inherently had higher loyalty, now reaching 85 points. The loyalty of other skeleton tailors also reached 75. Loyalty is the bond between a lord and his troops. The higher the loyalty, the faster they work, and the less likely they are to rebel. If their loyalty is low, not only will the troops be demotivated and slack off, in severe cases, they might desert or even act against you. By then, it won't be a problem of work efficiency, but a matter of life and death. Thinking about how Fang Hao became a lord, one can understand the severity. "Soy," Fang Hao called out. Soy was distributing houses to the skeleton tailors. Hearing Fang Hao's call, he ran over immediately. "My lord, what are your orders? I don't have the blueprint for the factory right now, I'll arrange for someone to build one for you." "It might take a few days," Fang Hao said softly. "Without a blueprint, if you want to build something, you need to do it manually. Many lords don't have the blueprint for city walls, so they let the peasants build simple log walls. This type of construction has no difference from the blueprint ones. However, blueprint constructions can be completed in minutes and can be upgraded. But manual constructions can take several days, or even months, and cannot be upgraded. Thank you, my lord, we can wait, we are not in a hurry, Soy replied with a respectful attitude. The undead are the least afraid of waiting. They have plenty of time to waste. Good. After discussing the factory's requirements with Soy, Fang Hao arranged for the labor skeleton to build the factory next to the tailor shop. Although the two had mentioned it as a factory, it was actually a sizable warehouse. It was capable of providing shelter from the wind and rain and wasn't a difficult construction. If it were complex, they might not be able to design it or the labor skeleton wouldn't be able to build it. Seeing the start of the construction of the factory, Fang Hao gave a few instructions and then returned to the front of the Lord's wooden house. He sat down on the bench and opened the Book of Lords again. There were new blueprints, including the bedside cabinet blueprint, wool carpet blueprint, beast skin backpack blueprint, and sturdy fishing rod blueprint. The first two didn't need to be made. They weren't lacking them and they weren't of much value. The fishing rod was also temporarily unnecessary as the pressing time didn't allow him to waste it fishing. In contrast, the beast skin backpack was useful to him. In this world, they didn't have system spaces or space rings or spatial gadgets to store items. Every time he went out, he would bring a wooden cart. He also had a simple homemade backpack. It was made of beast skin and hemp rope. Now he could use the Book of Lords to make a professional beast skin backpack. Beast skin backpack. Leather 5, spun thread 2. Description: a finely crafted backpack, which can carry more items and reduce the load of the user. The spinning warehouse was full of the fruits of the skeleton tailor's labor. Perfect for making backpacks. Producing quantity: 1. Produce. A 100-fold enhancement is triggered. A beast skin backpack 101 was obtained. Leather backpacks appeared beside Fang Hao and fell to the ground one by one. Fang Hao picked one up and looked it over carefully. The backpack was brown, treated on the surface, and felt good to touch. Where the leather was stitched, string was used to sew it together, sturdy and detailed. All in all, it was countless times better than his previous backpack. Master, do you need me to prepare bathwater? Era walked out of the cabin and asked softly. Fang Hao assessed himself. He had indeed sweated a lot from today's challenge task. Prepare it, Fang Hao said. Era, take one of these backpacks, it might come in handy. Really? Thank you, Master. Era joyfully picked up a backpack and carefully inspected it. Coming from a small tribe and having been a slave for a while, Era had known hardship. She was always a little excited whenever she received anything. Put the rest in the warehouse, and whoever needs one can take it. Fang Hao slung his backpack over his back. Yes, Master. Era took her bag back to her room and began preparing the bath. Congratulations, Lord, you have completed the Nature's Revenge task. Reward: all faction influence plus 50, own faction influence plus 100, a faction treasure, a special building blueprint, warfire coins plus 100. The system's voice suddenly sounded, indicating that the compulsory task was complete. Fang Hao remembered that when he completed his first trial task, there was a global announcement, and the rewards were more generous than today. At that time, the chat channel was buzzing. Now it was just a general announcement, and only he could see his reward. Fang Hao, who was about to stand up and leave, sat down again. He checked the rewards he had received. The faction's treasure, the White Bone Throne. White Bone Throne, purple. Category: Throne. Ability: increase the effects of Lord's undead skills by plus 5%. All undead troop attributes plus 12%. Natural disaster damage within territory minus 10%. Description: the confused undead need a leader, one with a smart mind and great ambition, to cast darkness over the land. The White Bone Throne appeared in front of him. The white bones gleamed like jade, smooth and shiny. Several gemstones were embedded in the tall backrest. And at the top was a gray, half-spherical gemstone that looked like a gray sun, spreading darkness and death across the land. Fang Hao stood up and touched it gently. It felt smooth and warm to the touch, just like jade, not bony at all. Sitting on it, it felt rather comfortable and not cold at all. Otherwise, he would really worry about getting a cold stomach. You guys, carry the throne into the hall. Fang Hao called over a few skeleton guards on patrol. The white bone throne was much larger than a regular chair. 6 guards had to work together to lift it and slowly carry it into the cabin, placing it in the first floor meeting hall. There had always been very few people in the territory. Usually, Fang Hao would just casually give instructions to Nelson and the others. The purpose of the meeting hall was seldom realized. The skeleton guards carried the throne inside little by little. Era, who was preparing Fang Hao's bathwater, poked her head out to watch the excitement. When the white bone throne replaced the orc wooden chair and Fang Hao sat on it, a faint ripple spread out instantly, covering their entire territory. This indicated that the attributes of the throne were now in effect. Wow, Master, this chair looks so cool. It must be worth a lot due to its gemstones, right? Era also came over and looked at the white bone throne with her wide eyes. The bones of the throne had been treated specially, making them look more like bones made of jade. Besides, living with the undead all the time had made her less fearful of the white bones. Undersell, we will be richer in the future. Fang Hao also turned and touched the largest gemstone at the top of the seat back. Although he didn't know what kind of gem it was, he was certain it must be quite valuable, especially since it was so large. Oh, speaking, Era also stepped forward and touched the gemstone on the back of the chair. Fang Hao sat on the throne and continued to look at the rewards he had received. Next up was the building blueprint. Magic Defense Tower. Type: Special Building. Placement: Mage 0/3, requires mage of the identical attribute. Ability: can cause magic damage to enemies within range. Description: dangerously ferocious, always synonymous with magic. When released through a magic tower, will have greater killing power. Construction required: hardwood 500, stone bricks 720, metal parts 220, essence of magic 30. It was indeed a magic tower. There was already an arrow tower within the territory, which could accommodate archers for long-range attacks on enemies. But the primary function of the arrow tower was acting as a watchtower, guarding against enemies approaching the city. In reality, the attack caused by the arrow tower was quite limited. The addition of the magic defense tower, on the other hand, helped fill the region's lack in attack power. The damage of a mage itself was strong. Coupled with 3 mages operating the magic tower, the power was undoubtedly huge. After reading the description, he went outside to build the magic tower before going to bed. Master, your bath is ready. Aren't you going to take a bath? Era asked again. I'll be right back, Fang Hao replied, and then he directly walked out. Once at the city wall, he constructed a magic defense tower on every side of the wall. Without the compulsory task this time, there wouldn't have been enough materials. 4 rays of light rose simultaneously, slowly forming a tower-like structure. 5 minutes later, when the lights faded, the magic tower was successfully built. Compared to the towering arrow tower, the magic tower was a lot shorter. It seemed more like a magic fortress sitting on top of the defensive fortification, with faint flashes of lightning at the top. 3 people per magic tower. Fang Hao arrived among the undead mages and ordered. Several mages with pale skeletal fingers gripping magic wands walked into the magic tower. As they entered, the attributes of the magic tower also changed accordingly. The lightning at the top turned black, with black electric sparks flickering. The attack attribute of the magic tower would change according to the attributes of the mages who were operating it. After completing everything he could think of, Fang Hao finally returned to the woodhouse, took a bath under Era's service, and then went back to his room to rest. Late into the night. Shadowwind Castle. The quiet sky was suddenly illuminated by a beam of light. The light disappeared, revealing a man in a black robe, appearing in the sky above Shadowwind Castle. Finally back, the man's words stopped when he saw the scene before him, showing an incredulous look. He quickly closed his eyes and murmured to himself. No, I just had a vision, it must be the after effect of the teleportation scroll. After mumbling those words for a while, he slowly opened his eyes. However, what he saw was still a scene of ruins, broken stones, and rubble. Who was it who destroyed my castle? I'll kill you. The man roared, displaying his sharp fangs. Deep in the night, the territory is still brightly lit. The collected nightstones had been turned into street lamps, set up on both sides of the street, and in important places like the tailor shop and the Viscera Museum. The bright nightstones shrouded this burgeoning city in a faint glow. The Lord's wooden house. Feng Hao was sound asleep. Bang! Suddenly, a deep bell sound reverberated through the entire territory. Feng Hao jolted awake, his heart pounding. Bang! The bell rang again. The copper bell in the territory had been struck. Feng Hao rolled out of bed, not bothering to dress properly. He hastily put on his armor, grabbed the starfire wand from the weapon rack next to his bed, and left the room. When the territory's bell was rung, it meant there were enemies. Just after leaving the Lord's wooden house, he saw a figure flying above the territory, massive bat wings spread wide, obscuring the bright moon in the sky. Batman? Feng Hao subconsciously uttered. He almost thought he had time traveled again, but Nelson walked towards him, confirming he was still within the territory. However, the figure's appearance highly resembled Batman's entrance. Sir, this should be a vampire from the Eternal Night clan. Nelson approached. Vampire? Feng Hao immediately thought of Shadowwind Castle. In Shadowwind Castle, he had gotten a lot of information about vampires. He also understood that the Eternal Night clan represented vampires. Could this vampire be linked to Shadowwind Castle? As Feng Hao thought, he checked the properties of the stranger. Bloodhunter Giovanni Hamilton, Blue Tier Level 5. A Blue Tier Level 5 hero. No wonder, he dared to invade the territory on his own. At this moment, the undead mages in the territory and the mage towers were already engaged in battle with him. Magic missiles filled the sky, with black lightning from the defense towers. The scene was incredibly shocking. The Bloodhunter, Giovanni, relying on his flexible flying ability, was exchanging blows evenly with the defense of the territory. Seems like he's more of a tough nut to crack, Feng Hao commented quietly. To prepare for the forced mission, Feng Hao had recruited 10,000s of undead mages. With such a number of mages attacking at the same time, the density of the magic missiles was like a giant net flying towards the vampire. However, the intruder, relying on his flying ability and high mobility, could always evade with ease. Then, he would look for the opportunity to counterattack. The undead mage team had difficulty dealing with the vampire, and neither could the vampire harm the undead mages and magic towers on the ground. Plus, there was a skeleton hero wielding a long blade and a swarm of skeleton melee soldiers on the ground. The vampire didn't dare to descend and engage in close combat. Both parties continued to exchange blows, neither able to get the upper hand. After dodging a scorching blade light in the sky, Giovanni's peripheral vision caught sight of two figures in the territory, engaged in conversation. A human and a seemingly hunched-over skeleton, standing in front of the main hall, signifying the pair had special identities. They might even be the administrators of this city. Killing these low-grade, vast numbers of skeletons was pointless. It would be better to directly kill the leaders, then use his flight advantage to escape. With this thought in mind, after dodging some magic, Giovanni retracted his bat wings, dove from the sky, and attacked the location where the two were standing. Seeing the vampire rushing towards him, Feng Hao felt a tinge of anxiety. Inside his heart, Feng Hao raised his magic wand, ready to summon his guardian spirits to protect him. At this moment, Nelson reached out to stop Feng Hao, saying, "Master, it is better for you to stand aside and observe the battle." With that said, the magic wand in his hand was struck heavily on the ground. Bang! The next moment, Nelson's whole body underwent a sudden change in momentum. Feng Hao, who had some foundation in magic, could perceive that Nelson's hunched body had exploded with terrifying fluctuation in magic power. The magic elements in the surrounding space were converging rapidly towards his body. The ground beneath him began to transform, the leveled surface was boiling and roaring like boiling water. Nelson's bony finger pointed towards the approaching vampire. Suddenly, the ground rose like a tsunami, surging towards the sky. When Bloodhunter Giovanni, who was rushing over, he saw the earth rushing towards him like a tidal wave, his face instantly changed. He opened his bat wings again and tried to slow down and turn to escape. But it was already too late. The soil had wrapped around his ankles and was rapidly spreading across his entire body. Like a spider wrapping up its prey in a cocoon, his entire body was wrapped up. This was Nelson's skill, heavy burial. Bang! The soil cloud fell down and landed in front of Fang Hao and Nelson. The soil at the top slithered to both sides, revealing a pale human face. When Giovanni saw Fang Hao and Nelson, his face instantly turned extremely ugly. He never expected that such a powerful undead hero would be living in this undead territory. Two blood-red eyes surveyed the surroundings, looking at the humans suspiciously, and also looking at the undead corpse. When did humans start mixing with the undead? Why would such a powerful corpse witch that could kill him in a second appear in this small city? All of this was contrary to logic. At the same time, he regretted even more why he came alone. But now, it was already too late for any words. He could only think of a way to intimidate the other party. No matter who you are, undead or human, I am Giovanni Hamilton, a pure-blooded noble of Hamilton clan. Release me immediately if you don't want to die, Giovanni shouted as he ineffectively tried to break free. Fang Hao was slightly startled, giving Nelson a puzzled look. Listening to the other party's tone, and the fact that he exposed his clan, seemed like his background was not ordinary. Unfortunately, his opponent was Fang Hao, a new lord to this place, who would neither know about nor care about any family or even a king. Stop talking nonsense, I don't care what family you're from or how pure you are. Why did you forcibly invade my territory? Fang Hao said loudly. Whether one's lineage is pure or not, it doesn't matter. Where he came from, the only time it mattered was during breeding. So that notion would not work here. Giovanni snorted coldly, gave Fang Hao a sidelong glance and said, "Kid, mind your status, you don't have the right to question me." He was very clear. The powerful existence in this territory was the corpse witch standing next to him, not this frail human in front of him. He assumed that this human was merely a vassal or a servant of the undead. Fang Hao frowned. "Nelson, teach him a lesson." "Yes, master." After Nelson answered, once again, a surge of magic power emanated from his body. The next second, the soil wrapped around Giovanni began to tighten bit by bit, putting out cracking sounds as bones were forcibly broken. "Ah, have you gone mad, you undead? Why are you listening to the orders of a human?" Giovanni screamed in pain, while shooting an angry look at the corpse witch. Compared to undead and humans, vampires were closer to the undead in nature. He couldn't understand why a potent corpse witch would take orders from a weak human. "I'm asking you one last time, why did you attack my territory?" Fang Hao's eyes narrowed, his voice was gloomy. Giovanni suddenly felt a chill down his spine and a wave of fear arose in his heart. He was sure if he continued his defiance, the opponent would silence him permanently, even if he had revealed his family background. "Hey, stop acting dumb. Did you or didn't you take the things from my castle? How can you guys be so shameless? You stole my things and even stripped the castle." Giovanni became increasingly furious as he spoke, unconsciously raising his voice. Saying this, Giovanni's anger flared up again. Vampires have a long life. Giovanni, who shares Hamilton's lineage, has caused a lot of trouble due to his rebellious nature. His greed for blood, looting, and stealing has earned Giovanni a bad reputation amongst all clans. Anything that Neville is interested in, be it an object or a life, he will find a way to acquire it. That's where the Bloodhunter came from. Vampire life is extravagant, and Shadowwind Castle is one of Giovanni's mansions. Many objects inside, whether part of the architecture or otherwise, were accumulated over many years. And the location of Shadowwind Castle was carefully selected by him. The forces that were pursuing him would have difficulty finding this place, not interfering with his regular life. But who could have expected? He was just gone for a while. When he returned, not only were the items in the castle gone, even the castle itself was stripped bare. Who could endure such a thing? When he discovered Fang Hao's territory, and that it was populated by low-level undead, his anger initiated an attack. He wanted to rip apart everyone here, whether humans or undead. But he didn't expect there to be a powerful undead hero present within the territory. They defeated him in an instant. Feng Hao looked at the furious Giovanni with an unchanging expression, but felt somewhat awkward. He thought Shadowwind Castle was just a deserted dungeon. And the dust inside the castle showed that nobody had lived there for a long time. Feng Hao initially thought that no one had lived there for such a long time. And probably nobody will be coming back soon. By the time the castle's owner returned in a few years, his own territory would have developed. And he wouldn't be afraid of the owner. But just a few days later, the owner already showed up at his doorstep. And he left nothing of the castle for the owner, not even a strand of hair. Feng Hao fell into silence, while Giovanni, feeling more confident, shouted, "Release me at once, and compensate for all my losses. Or brace yourself for the wrath of the Hamilton family." Giovanni was very confident in his family. The Hamilton family could easily destroy this small city in front of them. Once released, Giovanni would find a way to capture this man and make him his blood slave. Each day he would drain his blood and torment him bit by bit. Hearing Giovanni's threat, Feng Hao shook his head with a bitter smile. Not to mention that the items he had scavenged from inside the castle were already almost sold. He had no means to compensate for the losses. Even if he did, he would not compensate. The rule which this world adheres to isn't about reasoning. The only rule here, might is right, every reasoning is built on the power to intimidate the other party. Given Giovanni's nature, had he found Feng's territory first, he would not only have plundered the land, but Feng Hao wouldn't have survived either. Feng was also grateful that he obtained a golden hero like Nelson. "Are there more of your kind nearby?" Feng Hao leaned in, asking in a low voice. Hearing Feng Hao's words, Giovanni felt a tightening in his heart, sensing that something wasn't right. He quickly changed his tone and said, "Don't do anything rash, we can resolve this peacefully. It's just a castle, I won't pursue this matter anymore. Consider those items as gifts to a friend." Giovanni was not stupid, he naturally noticed Feng's intentions. He backed down immediately to try and ease the tension between them. Feng Hao was not stupid either, he wasn't going to believe Giovanni's words. Release Giovanni so he can go gather his family's power? Don't be ridiculous. Feng would sooner believe that he could grow another 5 centimeters. Then he'd believe Giovanni would swallow his pride. Don't worry, it shouldn't be too quick and painful. Welcome to the undead camp. Feng Hao extended a warm smile once again. Have you gone mad? Your small city can't withstand the wrath of my family. I advise you not to do anything stupid. Fear was now evident on Giovanni's face. Vampires have long lives. They can enjoy life over countless years. All of them, when faced with death, exhibit even greater fear. Feng Hao didn't say anything. Nelson slightly waved his hand, and the soil wriggled, covering Giovanni's nose and mouth once more. I leave it to you, Feng Hao said in a low voice. Nelson nodded slightly and continued, a pure blood clan member might yield some unexpected gains. With a gentle wave of his hand, 2 skeleton soldiers came over. They hoisted Giovanni, bound by the soil, and carried him into the Viscera Museum. Converting Fireblade into an undead hero last time consumed 5 days of Nelson's time. This time, who knows how many days it would take to transform Giovanni into a skeleton hero. Nelson left, and Feng Hao, yawning, returned to his lord's cottage to rest. The next morning, Feng Hao woke up from his dream. He rubbed his eyes and walked downstairs. Just as he reached the staircase, he collided with Era, who was coming up the stairs. Era's body lost balance momentarily, and she clung tightly to Feng Hao. The intimate contact allowed him to feel the softness of Era's body. Master, Sir Nelson is waiting for you at the door, Era quickly said, stabilizing herself. Feng Hao replied, heading downstairs. As soon as he walked out of the door, he saw Nelson sitting on a bench, with a viscera jar giving off a faint blue glow next to him. Good morning, Nelson, Feng Hao greeted with a smile as he walked over. Upon seeing Feng Hao, Nelson stood up and said, Good morning, my lord. Nelson held a special status in the territory, not just as the first hero under Feng Hao's command. His knowledge and abilities were extremely powerful. especially his ability to transform enemy heroes into skeleton heroes affiliated with him. This was nothing short of a divine skill. Did you need something? Feng Hao asked. Yes, my lord, please look at this. Nelson handed over the viscera jar in his hand. Feng Hao had encountered viscera jars before. He had bought one from the skeleton merchant. Even though he knew they were used to hold human organs, he had never used one before and didn't know how to use it. But the viscera jar before him was different. The one he had bought was empty, but this viscera jar was already in use. Viscera jar, category, container, ability, revival. A viscera jar with the revival feature refills the life value of combat personnel. Description: you can place the viscera jar with special abilities in the viscera museum, giving troops special abilities. Looking at the attributes of the viscera jar, Feng Hao furrowed his brow. The two viscera jars in the warehouse were both empty. How come he now held a heavy one in his hand that also possessed attributes? Could it be one of his own? Lord, the viscera jar contains the organs of the vampire we captured. It has now gained special abilities, Nelson explained softly. Feng Hao felt a jolt in his heart. Could it be that the corpses of heroes could be preserved in viscera jars? Thinking about it, it didn't seem right. Fireblade, as the first one to be converted into a skeleton hero, didn't have his organs preserved as such. Feng Hao couldn't figure it out and decided to ask directly. What are the requirements for preserving organs in a jar? Or is there some kind of rule? Nelson just made a gesture of, please, my lord, please. I will explain it to you on the way. The two of them walked side by side towards the Viscera Museum. Along the way, Nelson provided some answers. My lord, the Viscera Jar is a magnificent invention of the Undead clan. It uses curses to seal away powerful forces and bestow this strength onto the soldiers, he said. Feng Hao nodded his head in half understanding. He asked again, does this sealing process have any requirements? What I mean is, can a Viscera Jar be used after anyone dies? This point piqued Feng Hao's curiosity. A Viscera Jar was a tool that could tap into limitless potential. It was like a skill card in a game, bestowing unique effects when paired with different soldiers. It could bring about various changes to ordinary soldiers. Feng Hao recognized the significance of these jars and treated them very seriously. Not exactly, only those possessing ancient bloodlines or special talents can be sealed. Nelson continued to explain. This reminded Feng Hao of Giovanni from last night. The man had continuously boasted about his family and lineage. It seemed that his family indeed possessed a special bloodline. The pair chatted as they arrived at the Viscera Museum. Upon entering the hall, they immediately felt a chilling sensation that caused an involuntary shiver. Various microstructures were displayed in the Viscera Museum. There were burial grounds, underground cemeteries, halls of the dead, mage towers of the undead, and magic defense towers. All of these structures belonged to the undead faction, excluding any special buildings. In front of each structure was a circular indentation, the same size as a viscera jar. Nelson continued, my lord, by placing a viscera jar in the corresponding area, the power of the jar will be bestowed on the soldiers. With that, he handed the viscera jar back to Feng Hao. After considering for a moment, Feng Hao placed the viscera jar of revival in the indentation of the burial grounds. Clank, as if triggering a mechanism. The viscera jar sank into the indentation, leaving only the skeletal lid visible. A faint glow spread instantly, and the attributes of the burial ground soldiers also change. Skeleton Soldier, Tier 1 Faction. Undead. Racial traits. Undead, Hollow Skeleton, Vulnerable to Light. Skill. Shield Bash. Enhanced Skill. Revival. Innate Abilities. Basic Combat Mastery, Basic Sword Mastery, Basic Shield Mastery. Note: skeleton soldiers wielding weapons raise their jagged bone arms. They have only basic combat ability, but their fragility makes them unable to withstand sustained attacks. The burial grounds served as the barracks for the undead faction. Although it could currently only recruit Tier 1 soldiers, it was the building best suited for the revival skill. Revival could allow soldiers to recover their health continuously during battle. Compared to cavalry and mages, infantry on the front line needed this skill more. Okay, The power of the viscera jar has been bestowed upon the soldiers. And I must now continue with my work. I'll remain here for the next few days, continued Nelson. A skeleton hero took time to create. The previous Fireblade had taken 5 days, and this one was unlikely to be done any faster. Your efforts are appreciated, sir. It is my duty, my lord. Upon leaving the Viscera Museum, Era had prepared breakfast. Just as Fang Hao was enjoying his food, the pig-headed human with a carriage entered the city. According to the plan, today was the day to deliver goods to the bronze bull at the Manwha market. The pig-headed human, together with a caravan and 120 helpers, had set off early to reach Lord Fang's territory. Greetings, Lord Fang, Bolton saluted along with everyone else. Yes, why don't you all take a seat and I'll have someone prepare the goods, Fang Hao said. Having said that, he dispatched a skeleton soldier to lead the carriage directly to the warehouse. The pig-headed human stayed behind to wait. Bolton was no stranger to this place. But for most of the other pig-headed humans, it was their first time here. Facing an army of skeleton soldiers, they sat in their chairs, uncontrollably shaking their legs. From a great distance from the city, skeleton soldiers were already patrolling. The closer one got to the city, the more skeleton soldiers there were. Layer upon layer, it had now reached a terrifying level. At this time, Era brought over some fruits. Bolton got up again, his attitude still respectful. Miss Era. Good morning, Bolton. Era also greeted cheerfully. They had seen each other a few times and were somewhat familiar with each other. She placed the fruits in front of the pig-headed human. Then continued back to the wooden house to clean the room. Outside the warehouse, 30 carts are parked next to the warehouse. 20 of them were brought by the pig-headed humans, 10 were bred in the territory's stables. Of course, the warehouse didn't have much equipment. He just wanted to avoid so many people and use the Book of Lords to create. He opened the Book of Lords and turned to the production page. Plate armor, leather 12, iron 6, iron plate 4, arm guards, leather 5, iron 3, iron plate 2. The quantity of these two types was adjusted to 30. Triggered 100-fold amplification, obtained plate armor 3030. Triggered 100-fold amplification, obtained arm guards 3030. Clang, clang. One piece of equipment after another appeared, completely stacking up the surrounding open space. The plate armor rolled and collided, making a crashing sound. Load the carts, Fang Hao commanded. The accompanying skeletons took action, loading the plate armor and arm guards on the carts. After loading everything onto the carts, he led the convoy out. Bolton and the others were still sitting and waiting. Seeing Fang Hao come out, they immediately stepped forward. All right, let's go. Yes, master. The pig-headed humans took over the position of the cart driver. After putting the rejuvenation springs produced overnight on the carts, the convoy drove out of the territory in a grand manner, heading towards Manwha market. This time, Fang Hao brought 30,000 skeleton soldiers and 120 pig-headed humans. Era and Fireblade of the territory stayed to guard the house and did not leave with him. After several hours of travel, Manwha market could be seen from a distance. All the skeleton soldiers were stationed in the distance. And he continued to move forward with the pig-headed humans. After the previous few visits, the Taurans had become familiar with Fang Hao. They simply inspected the goods and let him pass directly. He came to the chieftain's hall and handed all the goods to the Taurans. Chieftain Taylok, it's been a few days since we last met. Fang Hao smiled and greeted him. Bronze Bull Taylok also laughed and said, Indeed, it has been several days, Fang Hao. A pair of bull's eyes once again carefully looked at Fang Hao. Just a few days and 6,000 pieces of equipment were delivered? This is simply unbelievable, even somewhat incomprehensible. The two chatted casually. Not long after, a Tauran guard walked in, whispered a few words in Bronze Bull's ear. And the guard retreated again. Ha ha, friend Fang Hao, I am very satisfied with this trade, please wait a moment. My people are bringing your reward, Bronze Bull said in a booming voice. I'm glad Chief Taylok is satisfied. I still look forward to our future cooperation. Fang Hao continued. His two trades with Bronze Bull have made great use of Fang Hao's abilities. With the help of the 100-fold amplification, he easily earns Warfire coins. Therefore, he hopes to continue working with Bronze Bull to earn more Warfire coins. Hearing Fang Hao's words, Bronze Bull's face became serious. He said in a deep voice, "Friend Fang Hao, perhaps our cooperation will have to be suspended for a while." "Why?" Fang Hao frowned. Bronze Bull thought for a moment, then decided to reveal some information. "You come from the west, have you seen an undead city there?" Bronze Bull's face was serious, and Fang Hao's brow furrowed instantly. He never expected Bronze Bull to mention the city of Undead in the west of the Manwha market. No need to say more, he was talking about his own territory. Could it be that something is happening, which is related to his own territory? Guided by his curiosity, Fang Hao responded, "Yes, there is a city of Undead. Is there an issue with that? It seems like your territory is quite close to the city of Undead. It would be wise to relocate further away during this period, or else there might be consequences." Bronze Bull continued. Fang Hao furrowed his brows deeper, a sense of anxiety rose within him. Consequences? This was making him think about the possibility of a war. He started to wonder if anything had recently happened within his territory that could spark a war. He even worried whether the Manwha market would be affected and might have to suspend cooperation temporarily. Could it be because the news of him killing the vampire last night was leaked? Did that Hamilton family want to give him trouble? That shouldn't be the case. Given the circumstances, the vampire had been captured by Nelson and taken to the Viscera Museum before it could even fart. There was no chance for the news to spread. This was baffling. An unfamiliar sense of threat surrounded Fang Hao. It made him uneasy. Chieftain Telik, relocating a city is no small matter. Could you at least tell me why so I can explain it to my people? Fang Hao pressed on. Bronze Bull fell silent. Apparently, there was something he wasn't able to elaborate on. After an extended pause in the quiet hall, Bronze Bull looked at Fang Hao earnestly and continued. "All right, in the land of Frostwind, there is a tribe known as the Skullcrusher tribe. It is rumored that they are preparing to attack the city of Undead." "An orc tribe?" questioned Fang Hao. "In general, tribes are composed of orcs, not vampires." "Yes, a powerful and brutal tribe." Bronze Bull shook his head slightly. It seemed that even a powerful hero like Bronze Bull was deeply wary of this Skullcrusher tribe. "So how many soldiers will this Skullcrusher tribe send and what's the situation with their heroes?" Fang Hao asked further. Bronze Bull looked at Fang Hao curiously and shook his head slightly. "I'm unclear on those details, but the Skullcrusher tribe is notoriously brutal. As a human, you might be in greater danger." Bronze Bull did not have much information. He felt compelled to warn Fang Hao due to their successful collaborations thus far. He didn't want Fang Hao to be affected by the upcoming battle and risk his life. But what Bronze Bull did not realize was that the city of Undead he was talking about was actually Fang Hao's territory. There was no way Fang Hao could avoid this. Fang Hao took a deep breath and continued, "All right, when I return, I will consider it carefully." The two kept talking. After completing the inventory check for the equipment, a large box of Warfire coins was brought in. With a loud thud, it was placed in front of Fang Hao. "Received, 180,000 Warfire coins." A large box of glittering coins laid in front of Fang Hao. The Manwha market, serving as the trading hub for all the tribes in the area, had accumulated a vast amount of wealth. The reserves of Warfire coins had reached a shocking level. Possibly, even the larger tribes were unable to compete with the amount of coins that Bronze Bull had saved. This made Fang Hao realize that if he was able to establish his own market, a similar result might be achieved. He received this final payment, and as Bronze Bull has no new orders, they exchanged casual words before each went their own ways. Fang Hao beckoned for Bolton to help load the box filled with Warfire coins onto the carriage. As they exited the chieftain's hall, a tall and robust demon orc wearing a large robe approached them. His thick fingers were adorned with gemstone rings. He sported a golden chain around his neck, its thickness compared to a thumb. It glimmered under the sunlight, almost blinding people. He looked like the embodiment of a nouveau riche, flaunting his wealth. "Good afternoon, human friend, I didn't expect to see you again," the orc greeted warmly as he approached. Fang Hao examined the orc carefully. He found it hard to distinguish the differences between orc appearances. Unless they had distinct features, it was challenging to differentiate who was who amongst the orc race. But he had just walked out of the chieftain's hall when he saw the orc coming directly towards him. Rather than encountering him by chance, it felt like the orc had been waiting for him. "Good afternoon, can I assist you with something?" Fang Hao curiously asked. The orc cleared his throat softly, twirled the large ring on his finger, leaned closer, and whispered. "My friend, how was the taste of the rabbitman? Quite nice, right?" Fang Hao's brows furrowed, and he instantly recognized the orc. He was the slave trader who had exchanged Era for his iron sword. "What do you want from me?" Fang Hao took a step back, avoiding the orc's breath. "Hee, my friend, I have a new batch of goods here. Everything is in order, would you like to have a look?" The orc stepped forth. "You are so strong, one rabbitman would hardly suffice." Compared to the orcs, Fang Hao was rather thin. His apparent suggestive smirk indicated what he was trying to say. Fang Hao pondered over it. His territory was indeed short of manpower. He quietly said, "Bolton, have a few people follow me. Let's go and take a look with him." "Yes, master," Bolton respectfully replied. He immediately selected 20 people to follow Fang Hao. The rest were left behind to guard the money box. Upon hearing Fang Hao's approval, the slave trader's face instantly lit up with joy. "My friend, please follow me." Saying this, he led the group towards the market. "My friend, perhaps you are not aware. In this area, our goods are highly praised. Many tribes trade with us all year round. If you need anything, we can also deliver the goods directly to your territory," the orc continuously blabbered as he led the way. He emphasized the abundance of his goods and even offered home delivery service. These slave traders were never small-scale forces of mere 3 to 5 people. Those able to capture slaves everywhere they went always had a fairly significant force behind them. Some were even part of the larger tribe's businesses. "Do you also do business with humans?" Fang Hao asked while trailing behind. Since coming to this world, he had encountered orcs, vampires, and the undead. But he had yet to encounter any of the local humans. "We do, of course," the orc glanced at Fang Hao and quickly added. "But rest assured, we don't sell humans, haha. So you can relax." It seemed like he thought of something causing him to spontaneously clarify. Soon, they arrived at the place where the slaves were kept. An old warehouse, filled with a pungent odor, like walking into a sewer. Everyone couldn't help but cover their noses. The warehouse was massive, filled with black iron cages. Dirty hemp cloths covered the cages, blocking the view. Dozens of fully armed orcs stood guard at the front of the warehouse. "Honored friend, please take a look," the orc said as he lifted the hemp cloth. The orc slave trader pulled down the rag covering the iron cage, bearing the rust-streaked, oily iron cage, and the rabbit people in it. These rabbit people were all females, their ragged clothes barely covering their vital areas. Huddled in corners, their bodies were shivering uncomfortably. The orc slave trader boasted, "My friend, these rabbits are all young and healthy and are great choices for both labor and as pets. Where else can you find obedient slaves like these? What do you think?" What a human would do with the rabbit girls was the best known to the slave trader. If they truly wanted slaves for labor, they wouldn't normally pick these weak rabbits. Fang Hao said nothing, but circled around the cage. Looking at the numb, beaten rabbits, he asked, "Are you sure these are healthy?" The slaves before his eyes didn't look healthy, and they were not as lively as Era. The slave trader heard this. He picked up his stick, banged it hard on the cage bars, and shouted threats. "Put some energy into it, or I'll bury you all tonight if you don't sell." The ear-piercing noise from the iron cage caused the curled bodies within to stir slightly. "Friend, you know, in order to keep them obedient I cannot feed them too much. They are just hungry, certainly not sick," the slave trader continued to explain. In order to keep the slaves lethargic, they would control the food supply, leaving their slaves in a state of not starving but too weak to run. "My friend, these slaves are young and obedient. And when you don't need them anymore, you can sell them at a good price. You really won't make a loss, plus." The slave trader kept selling relentlessly on the side. These slaves were originally scheduled to be transported to the human city for sale, hoping for a good price. However, news of a possible war in the eastern tribes made them change plans. They had to sell these slaves as soon as possible. During their stay in Manwha market, he met the human who had bought the rabbit person before. He set his sights on Feng Hao. No matter what, he had to make the current human buyer purchase this batch of slaves, or he would be making a loss. My friend, what do you think? Would you like to buy these rabbit girls? The orc slave trader, with a parched mouth, asked again after licking his dry lips. Feng Hao looked at the rabbit girls in the cage, then at the slave trader. He hesitated, then asked, "What's the price?" "Hey, the old price, 60 warfire coins per person," the slave trader answered with a smirk. When selling Era, he had taken 60 short swords in exchange. So, he now quoted the same price. He still believed that Feng Hao would accept it since they had a previous transaction. However, Feng Hao shook his head slightly. "One slave for 60 warfire coins. If you're sticking with this price, you can keep them." Iron swords and warfire coins were not the same thing. As far as Feng Hao was concerned, 60 iron swords were merely a day's consumption. But warfire coins were irreplaceable. Seeing Feng Hao's objection, the slave trader was slightly taken aback. They had traded at this price before, why the sudden change? "As you can see, we have always traded at this price. These slaves are definitely worth it." The slave trader continued. Feng Hao was unmoved and countered. "Fixed price, 10 warfire coins per person, 400 total for the 42 people. Take it or leave it, but let's not waste each other's time." "That's impossible, we would not make any profit," the slave trader said loudly. The value of slaves is not often high. Especially the feeble, thin, and hairless breed of rabbit people, they were hardly fit enough to be orcs. They wouldn't appeal to orcs. Only by transporting them to human cities could they get a higher price. Yet Feng Hao's attitude gave them the impression of indifference, as if he could buy or not buy their wares. This left the slave trader indecisive. He had to clear this stock, but the price seemed unbearably low. Just as the slave trader hesitated and pondered over more pleas, Feng Hao turned and began to walk away. Which gave the slave trader a jolt. He hastily replied, "Sold, my friend, I'll sell." Upon hearing the slave trader say he would sell, only then did Feng Hao halt his steps. "Bolton, give him the money." Bolton took 4.00 warfire coins from his bag and handed them over. The slave trader took the coins and handed Feng Hao the slave contracts, 42 in total. From this moment on, these rabbit girls were under Feng Hao's ownership. "All right, get your spirits up. This human is your new master," the slave trader boomed, herding every single slave out of the cage and in front of Feng Hao. This was a crucial step, letting the buyer see that their purchased slave was not impaired. The rabbit girls stood in a line. As the slave trader promised, these chosen rabbit girls were young, and their figures catered to human tastes. With their lowered heads and drooping ears, they looked spiritless. Wearing only shabby clothes, they barely concealed their ample chests and perky behinds. A simple movement exposes a great deal of skin. Luckily, orcs had different beauty standards, otherwise, these rabbit women would likely not be in this place. "Take them to the cart and prepare food for them," Feng Hao ordered. "Yes, my lord." Bolton immediately arranged for people to escort the freshly purchased slaves to where the carriage was parked. Having dealt with the slaves, the orc slave trader was still counting the warfire coins on the side. In future, if there are such orcs available, regardless of gender, they can be sold to me. It's the same rate or payable in iron swords, Feng Hao said quietly. The slave trader, who was counting warfire coins, was slightly surprised. He confirmed with suspicious eyes, "You also want male rabbit people?" He thought, this human is really a deviant. "Yes, not only the Rabbitman clan, but I'm also interested in other orc clans that are similar to humans. Those who are easy to manage. I have a large territory that needs to be developed." "Do you understand what I mean?" Feng Hao lightly slapped his shoulder. "Oh, I understand, the slave trader replied subconsciously, not knowing if he truly understood. Immediately after, he added, recently, the situation in this region has been a bit chaotic. So the matter of the slaves might be delayed for some time. When you deliver the slaves, I will pay you then. Feng Hao was not in a hurry either. All right, in that case, I will give you a gift as a token of our long-term collaboration. The slave trader pulled out a shell from his robe and handed it to Feng Hao. Feng Hao held it and inquired curiously, "What is this, a seashell?" "My friend, this is a sound-transmitting shell, a simple and practical tool for sending messages." The orc slave trader explained. Sound-transmitting shell, sun, description, can be used to receive messages from the mother shell. Sound-transmitting shells come in pairs, a mother shell and a sun shell. Speak into the mother shell, and sound can be heard from the sun shell. In other words, the gift the orc was giving Feng Hao was only for his own convenience when he has merchandise, it was otherwise useless. The orc was quite shrewd, he knew how to do business. Feng Hao stored the shell, chatted with the orc for a bit more, and then turned to leave. After bidding farewell to the slave trader, Feng Hao went straight to the tavern. He pushed open the door of the tavern. Inside the tavern, it was still bustling as usual. Beastmen of various races were drinking and chatting, shouting loudly. Feng Hao was no stranger here and the tavern owner knew him well. "What'll you be having?" the tauren owner asked. Feng Hao came to the tavern to replenish some spices for his territory, and to see if there were any new single-page maps available. "Honey wine, please, and prepare the same spices as last time for me," Feng Hao said softly as he sat at the counter. "All right, wait a moment." The owner wiped his hands with a cloth and began preparing what Feng Hao needed. Feng Hao turned his gaze to the posting board next to him. It usually had some information on it, like bounties from various tribes, or maps brought by merchants. The map of the mine and the monster outpost Feng Hao got last time were obtained from here. There was a single-page map available today as well. Map. Unknown cave. Category. Single-page map. Description. A map drawn by a traveling merchant, recording the route and terrain of unknown ruins. Interested in the map? The tauren owner came back over, placing the honey wine in front of Feng Hao. "Yes, I'll take the map and these slave contracts," Feng Hao declared directly. "This map is a bit more expensive, it costs 3 warfire coins. Each slave contract costs 1 warfire coin. You can pay for it all when you check out," the owner said. Feng Hao nodded, sipping his honey wine as he chatted casually with the owner. Honey wine didn't quite suit the taste of adult beastmen. Considering the beastman's fondness for alcohol, honey wine was considered more of a sweet drink. While sipping his honey wine, Feng Hao suddenly remembered the blueprint for a troll's brewing barrel that he had acquired. He was still short of 2 quintessence of wine for the crafting materials. If it weren't for that, he could even open his own tavern. He cast a glance at the tauren owner, curiously asking, "Do you have any quintessence of wine here?" "Quintessences of wine? What are you going to do with them?" the owner asked with some surprise. Seeing the owner's surprised expression, Feng Hao was certain that the tavern must have them. "I need them to make something. Sell me 2, Feng Hao responded directly. "Ah, well, I do have 2 in the warehouse, but they're 50 warfire coins each. Interested in buying?" the tauren answered uncertainly. 50 each, not exactly cheap. Even though Feng Hao had done 2 deals with Bronze Bull, the owner wasn't sure if he would be willing to spend that much. After all, with 100 warfire coins, one could hire a small squad of beastmen. "Deal, you can include it with my spices," Feng Hao agreed readily. "All right." The owner didn't hesitate, readily agreeing and instructing the barkeeper to prepare the items. As Feng Hao was drinking his wine and waiting for the owner to prepare the goods, a card game at the neighboring table caught his attention. It was a game similar to poker, using dominoes and dice to ultimately determine the winner and the loser. The winner collected the wager, while the loser left cursing angrily. "Damn, this is some rotten luck." At that moment, a curse echoed from the card table. The cursing beast-eared girl hurled her dominoes onto the table in frustration. She was a short girl, but she stood out in the tavern. Her silver hair draped over her right shoulder while the hair on the other side was shaven extremely short. exposing her furry beast ears clearly. She wore a brown leather bustier on her upper body, her slender waist bare, revealing abs and a shadow of a V-line. Her tight skin-fitting leather pants highlighted her athletic legs perfectly. Her waist was thin, her back was slightly curved, and her body was lean and muscular, full of wild, unrestrained nature. The girl flung her bone cards on the table with an angry expression and loudly cursed her luck that day. The rest of them just watched happily, picking up their winnings. In a moment of aimless rage, she turned her head and met Fang Hao's gaze, their eyes locking. Fang Hao tensed up inside and quickly looked away, pretending to be examining the antler chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Even so, his actions drew the attention of the white-haired girl. She kicked a stool out of the way and sat down right next to Fang Hao. "Human kid, what were you just looking at?" the girl casually asked, plopping down onto a seat next to him and questioning. "Just glancing around. Why, is there a problem?" Fang Hao replied. Fang Hao grumbled to himself about his rotten luck. Not that he was scared of this white-haired girl, but he had the feeling of stirring up trouble just by trying to enjoy the spectacle. "Angia, he's a guest of the Telic chieftain. Don't make trouble here," the Minotaur boss interjected. Turns out, the white-haired girl's name was Angia. Hearing the Minotaur's words, Angia took another look at him. She swiveled her big round eyes, broke into a grin, leaned over, and proposed. "I just lost all my money at cards, lend me 200 gold coins. If I win, I'll pay you back with interest. If not, I'll spend 3 days with you, and I mean in any way you want. How about it?" Fang Hao's eyes widened in surprise as he looked at the white-haired girl standing before him. She changed her attitude so quickly and spoke so straightforwardly. It almost felt like there was something wrong with her brain. "Angia, play your cards, don't bother the guests," the Minotaur boss continued. But the girl didn't pay any mind to the boss's words. She persisted. "What do you think? Want to consider it?" The people around them started to chuckle quietly, waiting in anticipation for the upcoming scene. 200 gold could get me 20 of you, no difference. "Why would I lend it to you?" replied Fang Hao. He had just bought a whole lot of rabbitmen, all looking pretty decent. 200 gold for 3 days. Even if she really was willing to spend 3 days with him, it wouldn't be a good deal. "HMPH, I'm a hero, no ordinary goods. You're telling me 200 is too much?" Angia huffed, noticeably upset. This made Fang Hao even more surprised. He quickly checked her properties. Fighting Tooth, Angia, blue rank 7 hero. Turned out, she really was a hero. No wonder this humanoid beast with human-like appearance can act so arrogantly and rudely in the tavern without anyone stopping her. The tavern owner could only mention the bronze bull Telic to suppress her a bit when she was causing trouble to Fang Hao. But what species was this girl of? So domineering and provocative, a leopard? What do you think? It's quite enjoyable to be accompanied by a hero for 3 days. You won't lose on this deal for 200 gold, right? Angia said with a smile. Tavern, hero. Fang Hao stroked his chin and nodded slightly. Not bad. You wouldn't regret this, would you? As Angia, I never go back on my word, Angia continued. Okay, I agree. I don't have beasthead gold. I'll give you warfire coins instead. Fang Hao promptly brought out 40 warfire coins and pushed them towards Angia. Alright, wait for me to earn you a fortune. Angia snapped up the warfire coins and walked back to the card table, yelling loudly. Come on, watch me make you all beg for mercy. Then, the crowd continued the card game that they were playing earlier. At the front desk, the Minotaur boss sighed lightly. Let it go. Spending this money will save you further troubles from Angia. Huh? Hearing the boss's words, Fang Hao looked again at the card table. It seemed that Angia's card luck was infamously bad in this place. Is this Miss Angia audacious enough to create a commotion in the city? Fang Hao asked in a low voice. The Manwha market does have special regulations. No one is allowed to loot or fight inside the city. That's why Fang Hao, a human, dared to swagger about in the city. Though Miss Angia is a hero, she's merely blue color, somewhat weaker than Bronze Bull. Enough about her. It's good enough that she doesn't bother the chieftain. You two keep your distance. If she pesters you on your turf later on, that's unnecessary. The cow-headed boss warned gently, signaling him to look out for himself. Seeing the boss's expression made Fang Hao even more curious about Angia. Apparently, even Bronze Bull Taillock seemed at a loss about how to deal with this beast girl. Very soon, the bartender who went to the warehouse to fetch the spices returned. Packed neatly were all the spices Fang Hao needed, as well the essence of wine. The boss quickly calculated the cost. 220 Warfire coins. Alright, without fussing, Fang Hao directly handed over 220 Warfire coins. He put everything into his backpack. The trade was completed. Angia's gambling game over there was also nearing its end. The once bold and resolute attempt to turn the tide was nowhere to be seen, as sweat was already forming on her brow. When she lost her last chip, her eyes began to dodge when she saw Fang Hao. "It seems your luck isn't on your side," Fang Hao remarked. "Why yes, it's a bit off," Angia responded. "As per our agreement, you need to come with me." Fang Hao stood up, ready to leave. Hearing Fang Hao's words, Angia became a little flustered. It wasn't that she was afraid of Fang Hao, it's just that this place was Taillock's territory after all. The consultation she had agreed upon with Fang Hao in front of everyone might run into Taillock's interference. If she really was forced to accompany this human for 3 days, wouldn't she have no chance to run? Angia's big eyes spun around anxiously. "Wait, my luggage is in the guest room. Let me get it." With these words, she hurriedly headed upstairs, leaving Fang Hao alone standing in the tavern's main hall, watching her disappearing backside. Fang Hao had just sat down. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling came from outside the window. Then, a figure with her luggage dashed past the window on horseback, heading towards the city gate. Leaving behind a trail of dust, Fang Hao stood by the window, with his eyes wide open. Slim body, white hair, beast ears. Damn it, the girl's run away. There was a moment of silence in the tavern. Then, all the orcs in the bar burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha, that's so Angia." Everyone seemed to have anticipated that Angia would not smoothly fulfill her promises, as expected. The bovine boss came out to intervene. "I'll mention this incident to the chieftain, see if there could be any compensation for you." "No problem, it's just a small amount of money, no need to bother Chieftain Taillock." Fang Hao reassured him casually, eyeing the direction in which Angia had fled. After that, he walked directly out of the tavern, sauntering towards where his carriage was parked. Seeing Bolton, he said, "You lead everyone to leave the city." "Yes, sir," Bolton answered, starting to organize the return journey. In contrast to the 120 pig-headed humans on the way there, 42 more young girls from the Rabbitman clan were returning. The Pigman clan served as escorts, the carriage hauled the Rabbit clan girls, and the return journey began. Fang Hao lay in his carriage, exorcised God's presence, and arrived on the skeleton giant bat camping down in a mountain recess. Controlling the giant bat to take off into the sky, he began searching for Angia, who had left the city. Soon, he found traces of Angia. Angia didn't take the main road but rushed directly into the woods. She tied her horse to the side, climbed up a tree, and observed the Manum market. If she hadn't climbed the tree, it would have been hard to spot her from the air. "Let's see where you're going." Having confirmed Angia's location, Fang Hao began to command his skeleton army to intercept. Angia galloped out of Manum, plunging headfirst into the forest. She threw a disdainful smile back at the city, gradually receding behind her. This clueless human actually wanted her, a renowned thief, to accompany him for 3 days. "When you come out, I'll rob all your money and leave you broke on the roadside," Angia gnashed her teeth. Unlike everyone else's fear of escape, Angia wasn't planning on running away. She was simply hiding in the forest, waiting for that human's caravan to leave the city, and then she would steal all his goods. She had heard rumors in the tavern. This human was incredibly rich, hauling Warfire coins out by the boxful. Once she robbed him, wouldn't all that money be hers? The more she thought about it, the more excited Angia felt. Tying her horse to a tree, she climbed up to get a good view of the gates of Manum City, ready to wait as long as it took for that human to emerge. Time passed slowly. Chewing on a piece of grass and idly swinging her legs as she sat on a tree branch, Angia grew impatient. Did that human die in there? Why isn't he coming out? But as soon as the words left her lips, her face changed dramatically. She suddenly felt a faint vibration, followed by the sound of rustling bushes. Glancing around, she saw a dense skeleton army forming a circle, closing in on her. Angia was stunned. She rubbed her eyes incredulously. What was going on? A massive undead army here? It was impossible, but when she reopened her eyes, the undead army was still there, closing in on her rapidly. It looked like they intended to capture her alive. Bloody hell, I just lost a lot of money, I've got a lot of steam to blow off. Angia swore. She took out a pair of tiger's claw from her waist and slipped them onto her hands. The next second, she leapt from the tree and punched a skeleton in the skull. Crack! The skull shattered with a resounding break. This kind of injury didn't hinder a skeleton's movement. It raised its iron sword and swung it down at her. Angia slid her foot back, twisted her waist, and delivered a counter elbow strike. The skeleton's head was sent flying like a ball, and its body instantly fell apart, turning into a pile of white bones. Clang, bang, suddenly, countless skeletons swarmed toward her. And Angia fought back fiercely, punching and kicking in the sea of skeletons. But soon, she realized something was off. The more skeletons she killed, the more seemed to appear, as if they were never ending. Plus, as the battle wore on, she sustained injuries and her energy quickly waned. Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, she saw a skeleton with blue flames flickering in its eye sockets, flipping her off.
Wait, what?
Boom! Distracted for a moment, an iron shield smashed into her forehead and she was briefly stunned. The skeleton army quickly overwhelmed her and pinned her to the ground, stacking up like children playing a game. Under the command of the blue fire skeleton, Angia was tightly bound in rope, several layers thick. Even so, Angia did not stop struggling and kept cursing, "Let me go, you trash. If you're courageous enough, unbind me and we'll fight fair and square." But the skeletons, dumb as posts, stood in place guarding their captive, unresponsive to her words. She didn't know how much time had passed. Angia grew tired from all the swearing and decided to take a break, needing to recover her strength. At the same time, she racked her brain for ways to escape. Apparently, these skeletons were like blockheads, undisturbed by her curses. She was clueless as to why they would capture her instead of killing her. Just as she was deep in thought, she heard the rumble of wagon wheels from behind. Then, a familiar voice echoed, "Miss Angia, I have to say, leaving without notice is a bit impolite, don't you think?" Fang Hao walked around from behind, ending up in front of Angia. Seeing it was Fang Hao, Angia became instantly agitated, roaring, "So it's you, you despicable villain, manipulating these undead to fight me. If you are a man, we should have a fair fight." "What do you mean, despicable villain? According to our agreement, you're mine for the next 3 days. I can do what I want with you, didn't you say that yourself?" Fang Hao sat down in front of Angia, staring directly into her eyes. I will repay you." Angia tipped her head back, the expression on her face clearly saying, "My word is my bond." Fang Hao fought back a laugh at Angia's antics. Did he look like a fool? She borrowed money from him in the bar, didn't repay and took off. And now, having been caught, she was acting as though she was wrongfully accused. Was this not an insult to his intelligence, indirectly suggesting that he doesn't appear too clever? "Give me 40 warfire coins right now, or you'll have no choice but to come with me," Fang Hao said seriously. Angia looked around at the undead army. She was starting to regret it now. Who had ever heard of a human controlling so many undead? Who would want to go with you? "I don't have any money on me right now. But I promise to pay back the principal amount with interest," Angia continued. She had lost all of her capital. Where would she get money to repay Fang Hao? Fang Hao sneered, "Well, there's nothing more to be said then. Kill her, she'll make a good skeleton." As soon as he said that, the skeleton soldiers nearby lifted their razor-sharp weapons. Wait, Angia yelled out in panic. Fang Hao halted the skeleton, smiled, and said, "Relax, it only hurts for a moment. Then it gets better." "What the hell are you up to? What good does it do you to kill me? If I'm dead, who will return your money?" Angia yelled back. Angia was suffering. Was this guy even human? Just for 40 warfire coins, he had mobilized tens of thousands of undead to surround her. And now he wanted to kill her and turn her into a skeleton. Was it really necessary? You know my secret now. I can't let you leave. There's no other choice but to kill you. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone, Angia said loudly. Kill her. Fang Hao repeated his command. The skeletons in the crowd, who had just lowered their weapons, raised them above their heads again. At this point, Angia could only helplessly close her eyes. Hold on, my lord, why not give her a chance and let her atone for her errors by becoming your slave? Pigman Bolton came over hurriedly and suggested in a whisper. Fang Hao once again stopped the skeleton about to strike and fell into deep thought. He asked in a somewhat hesitant voice, Angia, are you willing to sign the hero's contract with me? With tears in her eyes, she gritted her teeth and said forcefully, I am willing. After saying that, the sound of Angia's soft sobbing could be heard. Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords, turned to the hero's contract page. He went behind Angia, made a small cut at his fingertip, and pressed it on the hero's contract page. The next second, a faint light enveloped Angia and entered her body. At the same time, Fang Hao received a system prompt that he had obtained the hero Fighting Tooth, Angia. Fighting Tooth, Angia, current loyalty, 55. That's really too low. If he didn't have the hero's contract, she might even consider killing him at such a low point. Hero's contract and slave's contract function similarly. They enforce rules to the existing subordinate relationships. That is, it prevents actions that would harm the master. Moreover, the master has the power to decide the life and death of the other party. Once this contract is signed, the signee loses their freedom and becomes at the mercy of the master. After the contract was completed, Fang Hao immediately checked her attributes. Fighting Tooth, Angia, Blue 7th level hero, Faction, Orc, Template, Blue, Racial traits, Living creature, Poison resistance, Fond of fighting. Legion skills, Pathfinding, Infantry commander. Skills, Fist dance, Red tooth, Divine warrior training, Never fear the strong. Innate skills, Advanced body technique mastery, Advanced tactical mastery, Advanced physical fitness mastery. Living creature. This type of soldier can be healed and be affected by morale, emotions, and etc. Immune to bone manipulation technique and similar abilities. Poison resistance. Dilutes internal toxins while in a coma after poison onset. Fond of fighting. All attributes increase in excited state. Pathfinding. The unit leading the troops does not get affected by rough terrain and marches at a normal speed. Fist dance. Proficient in using physical attack moves such as rushing punches, breaking tiles, and causing landslides. Red tooth, elbow strike, deals 200% of standard damage. Divine warrior training. Better control the boiling power within, continuously causing harm to the enemy. Description. What? There are still living members of the Fighting Tooth clan. The Fighting Tooth clan is the most unusual among the orcs. They fear no other clans, no matter how powerful, leading to their extinction. Angia's attributes are not bad. The describable content always feels familiar to Fang Hao. Alright then. Though her loyalty isn't high, she's his hero now anyway. Looking at the silently weeping Angia, Fang Hao forced a bitter smile, feeling like he had perhaps frightened her excessively. Untie her. The pigman pulled out the iron sword at his waist, cutting all the ropes binding her. After all, in order to subdue this Fighting Tooth clan girl, she was bound layer upon layer of ropes. Alright, stop crying. My territory is not bad. I guarantee you won't have to worry about food and drink there, Fang Hao persuaded from the side. Angia remained silent, wiping her tears with her sleeve. Bolton began commanding the skeletons to clean up the battlefield. This battle resulted in quite the loss of skeleton soldiers. The ground was littered with scattered white bones and dropped equipment. When everything was ready, everyone got back on the carriage. Under the escort of skeletons and pigmen, they headed towards the territory. Except for the newly joined Angia, there were also 42 bot slaves from the Rabbitman clan. Angia merely felt wronged in her heart and kept wiping away her tears. The other bunny girls, however, were scared to the point of turning pale by the platoon of skeletons. They thought they had been sold to a human master. Now, they were imagining themselves being used as sacrificial offerings in some undead rituals. or even being killed in more cruel ways. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably. "My name is Fang Hao. I have my own territory. You can live there in the future," Fang Hao said on the side. But all he got in response was silence. Only the sound of the wheels pressing against the road and the collision of soldiers' armor could be heard. In any case, Fang Hao shut his mouth as well. He lay in the carriage, casually flipping through the Book of Lords. They moved forward silently. When the fortress-like city came into view, the faces of both the rabbit women and Angia turned even more solemn. Was this a city, or a kingdom of the undead? Layer upon layer of skeleton soldiers patrolling around the city, their numbers reaching a terrifying level. The convoy passed through patrolling soldiers and entered the city. "All right, ladies, this is my territory. Welcome to join," Fang Hao introduced warmly. A second later, dozens of rabbit girls were scared into sobbing. As the territory expanded and developed, the labor shortage became increasingly apparent. It wasn't that there weren't enough skeletons, but rather the finer tasks that ordinary skeletons could hardly handle. For instance, cleaning up, doing laundry and cooking. In the dictionary of ordinary skeletons, there simply wasn't the notion of handling things gently. Sanitation within the city alone was beyond the capability of a few people. "Master, you're back." Era, hearing the commotion, ran out of the Lord's wooden house. When she saw the rest of the Rabbitman clan in the carriage behind her, she looked on curiously. "These are new citizens who have joined us. You show them around our territory." Fang Hao looked at the teary-eyed rabbit girls. "Oh, okay." Era, seeing her own clan, had a joyful expression on her face. In a territory filled with the undead, having a few clan members became extremely important. After speaking with Fang Hao, she went to the center of the rabbit people and started chattering away. They toured around the territory. The hero Angia glanced at Fang Hao and left with Era. After all, being with a beast man was always more comfortable than being with Fang Hao. The rabbitmen were familiarized with the surroundings by Era. Fang Hao, on the other hand, started preparing housing for them. With so many people, he couldn't let them all sleep outside. He chose a suitable residential area and built 20 level 4 houses immediately. A level 4 house could accommodate 4 people at the same time, since they're all females and there weren't any married couples living in families. 20 houses were enough for them. If needed, he could add more in the future. After building the houses, Fang Hao made beds, beastskin blankets, and some daily necessities. Fang Hao wasn't a slave master and he wasn't heartless either. Basic needs of life were still required. Once everything was done, Fang Hao continued to check other buildings. After these last few days, the production factory had accumulated quite an amount of construction materials. He could upgrade existing buildings. Firstly and most importantly, the core of all the buildings. The Book of Lords wooden house. Level 5 Book of Lords Hall. Wood 3,500, stone 2,200, hardwood 1,200, brick 1,000, hemp rope 550, iron 220. He previously lacked hardwood and bricks, but now he had enough to build. Upgrade. In an instant, a beam of light enveloped the Book of Lords wooden house, and when the beam faded, a magnificent 3-story stone building stood before him. Level 5 Book of Lords Stone Tower. Owner: Fang Hao. Ability: Production Collection plus 2%, Troop Movement plus 2%, All Attributes plus L%. Current buildings: Level 4 Underground Cemetery, Level 4 Warehouse, Level 4 Burial Grounds, Level 4 Lumberjack's Hut, Level 4 Ranch, Level 2 Spiritual Field, Level 4 City Wall, Level 4 Arrow Tower, Level 4 Courtyard of the Departed, Level 4 Undead Mage Tower, Market, Sanctuary Tower, Rejuvenation Spring Well, Statue of the Harvest Goddess, Skeleton Conversion Field, Viscera Museum, Level 4 Stable. Note: Core building of the territory. Upgrade materials required: wood, 6,200, stone, 4,500, hardwood, 3,200, brick, 4,000, iron, 500, metal parts, 320. Upon attaining level 5, the Lord's wooden house was now referred to as the Lord's Stone Tower. The entire structure was built from stone bricks, making the structure sturdier and grander. Apart from that, there was also an additional ability. There was a significant boost to production rates and the attributes of troops. This should symbolize the transition of the territory into the second phase. After upgrading the Lord's Hall, Fang Hao continued his upgrades on the other buildings. especially after hearing about the Skullcrusher tribe from Bronze Bull. Fang Hao turned his thoughts around repeatedly, but could not find any information about the Skullcrusher tribe in his mind. But the undead territory west of Manwha Market was referring to himself, there was no one else. Thinking about it, he upgraded city walls and arrow towers to level 5. He looked at his resources. The undead base's facilities were all at level 4. To upgrade to level 5, the need for hardwood and brick was a given. But what was lacking the most was shadowstone. Among those left in his warehouse, there were only 18 pieces of shadowstone. Shadowstone quantities weren't enough for building both the level 4 undead hall and the level 4 undead mage tower. This was only enough to construct the burial grounds. Level 5 burial grounds: wood 2,400, stone 3,500, hemp rope 600, hardwood 220, bricks 150, shadowstones 15. The burial grounds serve as the barracks for the undead faction. Standard undead infantry can be recruited here. Upgrade: level 5 burial grounds, recruitable units: skeleton warrior, skeleton spearman, tier 2. Recruitment requires 2x wriggling spine. Abilities: revival, viscera jar augmentation. Upgrade. Note: this structure can recruit faction soldiers. Upgrading the structure unlocks new types of soldiers and higher tiers. Upgrade requirements: wood 3,200, stone 4,300, hemp rope 700, hardwood 440, brick 350, shadowstone 20. Upgrades recruited units to a higher tier, up to 100 units. Each unit takes 5 minutes.
Yeah?
Fang Hao tightly clenched his fist. When the burial grounds were upgraded to level 5, the names and tiers of troops also change. The skeleton swordsman became the skeleton warrior. The skeleton spearman became the skeleton spearbearer. All ranks from tier 1 rose to tier 2, which greatly improved the overall combat power of the troops. The upgrade function of the building could promote the recruited tier 1 skeletons to a higher tier. With a direction for advancement, Fang Hao began to arrange shifts for the skeleton soldiers to upgrade. After all, patrols cannot stop within the territory. Just as he finished arranging, Fang Hao was about to continue reading the Book of Lords when he heard Era calling him and rushing over. "Master, we're back." Era returned with the newly joined rabbit women. The returning rabbit women no longer had their initial tense expressions. They had taken a tour around the territory with Era and learned more about Fang Hao and the territory. They knew that Fang Hao wouldn't hurt them easily, and he wouldn't turn them all into skeletons. Moreover, he wasn't as ferocious as other slave owners. They could be well fed and housed. By the end of it, all the rabbit women looked not just relieved but even hopeful. If things were really as Era said, then they were genuinely fortunate to serve such a good master. Being well fed and having a roof over their heads were not luxuries that all slaves could enjoy. Where's Angia? Fang Hao looked back at Era, but he didn't see Angia. "Ah, Miss Angia is chatting with Mr. Soy, so we came back first," Era said. "Alright, there are daily necessities here, one set for each of you. Allocate the housing yourselves, 3 people to a room," said Fang Hao to the newly joined rabbit women. "Thank you, master." The group of rabbit women hurriedly expressed their thanks. "Era, you take a few people to cook, make it a lavish spread tonight. Consider it a welcome dinner for everyone," Fang Hao continued. "Yes, master." Era agreed, and led the rabbit women to the kitchen. Fang Hao proceeded to the tailor's shop to see what Angia and Soy were discussing. As he approached the tailor's shop, he saw Angia sitting there big and tall, while Soy, the skeleton tailor, was cowering in a corner, looking like a hostage rather than an undead. As he entered, he heard Soy saying, "Miss Angia, I can't play cards and I have no money, please don't bully me." "It doesn't matter if you can't, I can teach you. You'll get the hang of it after playing it a few times," Angia continued. "I have work to do. I really don't have time." Soy, still sitting by the side, refused. Fang Hao was speechless upon seeing the scene in front of him. Up until now, Era was still somewhat resistant to the undead, conversing with Soy seldomly aside from essential matters. Isn't it said that living creatures resist the undead? But Angia seemed to be quite familiar with it, having already engaged Soy in conversation. Ahem. Fang Hao cleared his throat and walked to the pair. "Lord," Soy greeted respectfully. Seeing Fang Hao approaching, Angia's expression stopped for a moment as she stood up, not saying anything. Angia, what are you doing here? Chatting, what's wrong with that? Can't a person talk? Said an arrogant Angia, lifting her head in response. I'm just coming to let you know that if you don't hurry over, all the good rooms will be taken by others. Then, only the rooms no one wants to live in will remain, Fang Hao stated casually. You? Angia bit her silver tooth and glared at Fang Hao viciously. She's a hero, isn't she? Let alone assigning her a special room. And now he informed her at such late notice. Doesn't it mean that the rooms are now occupied by other people? Thinking about it, she got up and rushed towards the residential area. Only after Angia left did Soy feel free, and asked, Lord, are these orcs the new members you've recruited? Yes, from now on, they will be the inhabitants of the territory. You should also keep track of which areas need manpower in your work. And I will arrange it accordingly, Fang Hao said. The Rabbitman clansmen are weak and gentle, and some powerful orcs don't recognize them as part of the clan. But in Fang Hao's view, the Rabbitman clan is currently the best choice for territory population. The Rabbitman clan are smart and diligent. They complete all orders given by Fang Hao meticulously. This point alone is far superior to those orcs who roar and fight all the time. As the territory gradually expands, he also needs manpower to handle all sorts of chores. Then these Rabbitman clansmen will be a good choice. After all, the skeleton soldiers will be responsible for fighting. They are mainly responsible for rear services. All right, Lord, I will consider this, Soy nodded in understanding. Go ahead with your work, tell me directly if you need anything. Yes, Lord. Having bid farewell to Soy, Fang Hao also returned to the Lord's stone tower. Angia was standing in front of the stone tower, seemingly waiting for Fang Hao's return. Did you choose? Asked Fang Hao as he came over. What do I choose? The rooms have all been snatched up by others. And how could you ask me, a hero, to share a room with them? Angia's eyes widened, and she gritted her teeth, as if asking if Fang Hao didn't respect heroes. No matter which tribe or human city-state, heroes are quite rare. Normally, they are either the clan leader or the core members among their forces. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll build you a separate one, where you can live alone. Fang Hao felt justified after hearing her reason, even though he forcefully signed a contract with her. Angia is indeed strong, and loyalty is also very important. We have to take into consideration her feelings. No need, I'll live here, Angia pointed at the Lord's stone tower. But that's where I live, Fang Hao exclaimed in surprise. I'm not taking the whole place. And I've looked, there are still many empty rooms inside. I want the one on the second floor facing south. Arrange for someone to decorate it with carpets. And a nightstone chandelier from the warehouse for me, Angia clearly arranged for herself. She had even chosen furniture from the warehouse that suited her needs. Lord Level 5 wooden house once again expanded, from 4 rooms directly to 6 rooms. The building spanned a larger area and had the semblance of a small castle. The 2 new rooms were located, one on the first floor and one on the second floor. The one Angia selected was on the second floor, the height was just right. And the lighting was also excellent. Don't you consider having a house for yourself? It can have several rooms, Fang Hao continued. No need, I'll stick with this one, said Angia. Fang Hao gave it a thought and apparently didn't find any major problems. Angia signed a contract with him, even if the level of loyalty was not high. She would not do anything to harm him. With the safety issue guaranteed, giving her a room wouldn't pose any problems. I can agree, but you have to promise that you will follow the rules of the territory in the future. Fang Hao proposed an exchange condition after giving it some thought. All right, Angia quickly agreed, and without waiting for Fang Hao to finish speaking, she rushed into the stone tower to check out her room. Fighting Tooth. Angia's loyalty to you increased by 20 points, the current loyalty is 75 points. The system prompt followed closely after Angia rushed into the room. She's that happy just for getting her own room? It increased 20 points directly. Among the heroes, Angia is of a ranger type, without a fixed dwelling or clan. She is prone to cause troubles, and many clans have large objections towards her. She had been living in open cities like Manwha Market all along. NOW that Fang Hao has given her a room. It's the first time she has her dwelling since she became a hero. It's only natural for her to feel inexplicably happy. Before Fang Hao could go in, Angia came out again, walked over naturally. Assign a few skeletons to me, I'll move my furniture in. Fang Hao called for a few skeletons to help Angia and the other rabbitmen move furniture into their room. With Angia enthusiastically directing the skeletons and decorating her room, Fang Hao got to take time out to continue making the Book of Lords and unlock blueprints. Giant's Brewing Barrel, wood 120, hardwood planks 50, metal parts 22, iron 5, iron plates 12, essence of wine 2. Description: a giant barrel made by an alcohol-loving giant, which can produce pure wine by adding ingredients and clear water to the barrel. Fang Hao has been wanting to do this blueprint for quite some time. He's gotten quite tired of the taste of plain water. It's not a bad decision to make some fruit wine or mead with flavor. He got 2 essences of wine from the tavern during his visit to the Manwha Market, which happened to meet all the conditions for making a brewing barrel. Choose to make it directly. 100 times amplification triggered, obtained Giant's Brewing Barrel 101. In an instant, 101 huge beer barrels appeared in front of Fang Hao. The 2-meter-tall, wooden barrel body blocked the line of sight. There are 2 openings on the side of the barrel body that can be used to pour in clear water and ingredients. And there's a metal tap at the bottom of the barrel. These 101 large kegs made Fang Hao somewhat troubled. One is enough for everyone in the territory to use, and there's really no use for the other 100. A few of you carry one into the empty room on the first floor of the stone tower. Send the rest to the warehouse, said Fang Hao, intercepting 4 skeleton soldiers who were helping to move the furniture. The 4 skeletons immediately dumped the furniture at hand on the ground, carried the keg into the stone tower, and placed it in the empty room on the first floor. After placing it at a fixed location, they poured in clean water and fruits. Fruit wine brewing, 29 minutes, 59 seconds. The brewing barrels started their real countdown. It's a foolproof operation, anyone with a hand could brew fruit wine. There were still 100 troll brewing barrels left in the warehouse. Opening a tavern with them would certainly be profitable. The drinks sold at Manwha Tavern were not cheap. If he opened his own, with lower prices and no production difficulties, it would be a no-brainer. By just adding some water and fruits, it could automatically transform. It felt like finding free money. Once there were more residents in his territory, or it had been open to outsiders. He must open a tavern, with a few bunny girl waitresses, the business would surely boom. Wait a minute. Orcs have a different aesthetic. In an orc tavern, bunny girls would not satisfy their aesthetic preferences. Bunny girls might be better suited for human males. At this moment, a bunny girl walked over, hanging her head and said softly, "Master, it's time to eat." Fang Hao responded and followed her out of the room. Once outside, all the rabbitmen and pigmen were waiting for Fang Hao's arrival, with only Angia sitting there, legs crossed. When Fang Hao approached, they rose to their feet. "Master, Lord, there were more people dining today, new rabbitmen, Angia, and the pigmen who went to the market with them." Although the dining hall had been greatly expanded, it was still hard to accommodate so many people for a communal meal. So, a simple dining table was set up in the open space outside the Lord's Hall, where everyone could eat together. "All right, everyone sit down." Everyone took their seats and the prepared dinner was served at this time. Roast meat, steamed fish, cold cuts, salad, vegetable soup, and so on. A sumptuous dinner filled the long table. Whether they were new rabbitmen or pigmen from the village, they rarely saw such abundant meals. For a moment, they stared at the meal, their mouths watering. Cough cough, I have a few words to say. Fang Hao stood up, and the hall instantly quieted down. Firstly, welcome the addition of the bunny ladies. You can live here with peace of mind. The territory will provide you with food, shelter, and protection. Tomorrow, I will assign you appropriate work. If you can do it, do it. If you can't, learn to do it. The pigmen worked hard today. Everyone, eat and drink freely. The territory has plenty of food. Now, let's enjoy our meal. Fang Hao finished speaking, then sat down again. Thank you, Lord. Everyone thanked him and began to eat. Feng Hao saw that the time was almost up, and the fruit wine in the brewing barrel should have been processed. So he arranged for people to serve the fruit wine to everyone. They chatted while drinking. Nancy of the Rabbitman clan's loyalty to you has increased by 10 points, current loyalty is 80. Mommy of the Rabbitman clan's loyalty to you has increased by 10 points, current loyalty is 75. Rabbit Girl, your loyalty to her has increased by 5 points, current loyalty is 70. One prompt after another appeared, and the loyalty level increased quickly. The Rabbitman girls were constantly stuffing their faces with food. Their faces could hardly conceal their happiness and excitement. They had become slaves and ate sticky food every day. The slave masters, fearing they might run away, even reduced the amount of food, leaving them just enough to avoid starvation. But today, not only did they get their own rooms and no longer have to live in cages, they were also eating such a sumptuous meal. All the Rabbitmen had changed their hearts. They went from being afraid of Feng Hao to being glad they were bought by him. After dinner, the pigmen drove back to the pigmen village. The Rabbitmen did not disperse either. They gathered together and chattered excitedly. The next day, early morning, Feng Hao suddenly opened his eyes, his forehead covered in sweat. In his dream, he had returned to his original world, and his colleague had stabbed him several times in the chest. This tension, this pain, felt so real. It was so real that he could still feel the pressure on his chest even after waking up. Feng Hao subconsciously touched his chest, only to feel soft skin. Damn it, what the hell is this? Feng Hao immediately woke up a bit more, looked down, and saw Angia sleeping next to him. One of her long beautiful legs unceremoniously lay across his chest. She was sleeping soundly. Holy shit, ah, master, you're awake. From his other side, Era's voice floated over. He looked abruptly and saw Era lying on his other side, smiling at him. Ah, Feng Hao answered subconsciously. He quickly recalled in his head what had happened last night. After dinner, everyone continued to drink some wine. When it got late, they all returned to their own rooms to rest. But now, what was the deal with these two on either side of him? Era, how did you get on my bed? Feng Hao asked softly. Era burrowed her head into Feng Hao's chest and whispered in his ear. Perhaps we had too much to drink. Master, are you getting up now? Indeed, they drank too much. Angia was still sleeping peacefully on the other side, her pose rather wild. Feng Hao moved her leg off his chest, got up and said, yes, I'm getting up. There's a lot to do today. Under Era's gentle urge, Feng Hao got dressed. Ignoring the soundly sleeping Angia, both he and Era left the room. As the door closed, the sleeping Angia furrowed her brow. She sank into dreams. In front of a low wooden house, a little girl with white hair was waiting boredly. It was Angia as a child. The door of the house opened. An old orc, draped in a bear skin cloak, stepped out. Young Angia immediately went to meet him. I heard them say that as long as you don't want me anymore, you can stay here and retire. The old orc turned around, glancing at the low, beast-skin-sealed wooden window behind him. Defensively, he said, you must have misheard. Why would they want to keep an old guy like me? I didn't mishear. You're already so old, why not stay here? You're going to die. Angia continued. I won't die. Let's go. I still have many old friends. There will be tribes willing to take us in. The old orc touched the bag on his back, boasting. I had good fortune today, won so much, enough for our journey. Angia's eyes were immediately drawn to the big bag of food. Why don't you teach me your card-playing skills? Then I can also win some good things. Ah, an orc tribe may not suit you. When you grow up, live in human cities. These skills will get you into trouble, the old orc said. Following behind the old orc, Angia asked, why do I have to live with humans, just because I don't have hair on my face? Among the other children of my age, I'm the strongest. You can try to make friends with them, not every problem needs to be solved with fists. Why do you always change? Didn't you say girls are powerful, less likely to get bullied? That depends on the situation, fists will only make things worse. The old and young figures slowly disappeared into the distance while having their conversation. 5 years later, Angia, 15 years old, a level 10 warrior. The old orc had aged. His body was no longer strong, the skin piled up like old tree bark, as if only bones remained beneath the skin. He was dying, his eyes could barely open and he could no longer walk. Angia, carrying the aged orc, had crossed the forest and rivers to reach the nearest orc city. She planned to use the method that the old orc had discussed to extend his life. Arriving at the city, the guards scrutinized Angia and the old orc on her back. "What do you want?" "I want to enter the city and use the married training ground to extend his life. Please let me in." Still carrying the orc, Angia bowed to the guards. "Go to the training ground to extend his life? You must be sick. Get lost, you can't just go anywhere." The guards pushed Angia away. Angia was pushed back several steps, her expression instantly cooled. Her right hand reached to her waist and the tiger's claw was drawn. The guard sneered, "Oh, what, you dare?" Bang! Before he could finish his sentence, the orc guard was sent flying like a sack, utterly embarrassed. The alarm inside the city rang. A large number of orc guards surrounded the two. The situation had indeed become worse. "What do you want?" An orc general walked out. Looking at the old and young pair, he sternly asked. Such a combination wasn't likely to cause trouble. "I want to use the merit training ground. Didn't you say all orcs can use it? Why can't I?" Angia clenched her fists, asking loudly, "You're level 10? The general took another look at the young girl in front of him. Angia did not answer, just coldly stared at him. The general fell silent for a moment, then waved his hand. "Let them in, all orcs can use the merit training ground." Angia, carrying the old orc, brushed past the general and entered the city. The old orc, laying weakly on her back, kept muttering, "Go west, closer to the human city, they're more likely to accept you. Don't fight all the time in the future. It's okay, you're not going to die, I'm here, you won't die." Before the merit training ground, Angia put down the old orc and took out the prepared materials. A light flashed, Angia disappeared. The old orc still sat there, gazing into the distance, his eyes slightly narrowed. 5 minutes later, blue light soared into the sky above the training ground. All the orcs shouted in surprise and gathered to watch. They wanted to see who had advanced to become a hero. When Angia reappeared, the old orc had already stopped breathing, but there was a smile on his face. The next second, the scene instantly shattered. Whoosh! Angia suddenly awoke from her dream, gasping for breath. Large tears rolled down her cheeks, blurring her vision. It was a while before she could stop crying. "No need to worry anymore, there's a place that would take me in now, I have a home." The sun was shining outside and the rejuvenation spring nearby filled the air with a natural fragrance. Outside the room, the newly joined rabbitmen had already begun working, cleaning various areas of the territory. "Master," the rabbitmen greeted. Good morning," Fang Hao replied and quickly left. Only a few young rabbitmen girls were left behind, looking happy and chatting in low voices. Upon arriving at the military district, Fireblade was seen arranging level 2 troops for patrols around the territory. Seeing Fang Hao coming over, he walked towards him. "Lord, do you have any orders?" "Not an order, come with me. I've received some information, let's discuss it together," Fang Hao said. Nelson was performing a skeleton hero conversion ceremony at the Viscera Museum, and hadn't emerged yet. When there's an issue, it could only be discussed with Fireblade first. The two returned to the Lord's Hall. Angia, looking sleepy, was just coming downstairs. She didn't even realize she was coming out of Fang Hao's room. "Angia, you too, come here, let's discuss this together." Fang Hao called out to her, stopping her from going wherever she planned to go. "Oh," Angia replied somewhat reluctantly. Her eyes, however, were rapidly surveying Fireblade, seeming to be quite interested in the bloody long blade in his hand. The three seated themselves in the hall. Fang Hao went straight to the point. "Skullcrusher tribe, have either of you heard of it?" Fireblade shook his head. "Never heard, is it an orc tribe?" Fireblade's memories, or his soul, had been altered and deleted. All his memories of the orc tribes were gone. Only the altered ones, the memories after becoming undead, remained. "Skullcrusher tribe? The Skullcrusher tribe from the Coldwind Mountains?" Angia suddenly asked in surprise. Both of them turned their gazes to her in that instant. It seemed she knew something. Come to think of it, it makes sense. Angia is an orc hero and a regular at the tavern. It's normal for her to pick up some news about the Skullcrusher tribe. Right. How well do you know about the Skullcrusher tribe in the Cold Wind Mountain range? Fang Hao asked directly. Angia sat nearby, casually saying, I've heard bits and pieces. Sha, the chieftain of the Skullcrusher tribe, is notoriously fierce and despotic. Long ago, he conquered all the tribes in the Cold Wind Mountain range and has been studying group migration. Cold Wind Mountain range, Sha. Fang Hao memorized these names. From Angia's words, this Sha had conquered the entire Cold Wind Mountain range. So, how strong is this Sha? And what is his military strength? Fang Hao continued to ask. I heard he's pretty formidable. I've never seen him, but he has a good number of troops. The whole Cold Wind Mountain range is his territory, Angia responded. The Cold Wind Mountain range was, indeed, quite a distance from here. As an orc herself, the information Angia occasionally learned about the Skullcrusher tribe was secondhand. She had never been there herself, nor had she seen Sha. Fang Hao nodded in understanding. After a moment, he continued. I got information from Bronze Bull Telik that the Skullcrusher tribe is planning to attack us. So, I need to know their movements and information. As Fang Hao finished speaking, their faces turned solemn. From what Angia had said, the strength of the Skullcrusher tribe couldn't be compared to that of an average tribe. This wasn't good news for their newly developed territory. How's that possible? The Cold Wind Mountain range is too far away from us. A journey would take several days. Are you sure Telik didn't get it wrong? Angia said, somewhat skeptical. He probably didn't get it wrong, Angia. Here's the map. Point the location of the Cold Wind Mountain range. Fang Hao opened the map page of the Book of Lords. Angia stood next to him, resting her elbow on his shoulder. She was quite interested in this magical luminescent map. The map in the Book of Lords was similar to a bird's eye view map in a game. It showed the mountains and rivers, not simple sketches made with pen and paper. Everything beyond the vicinity of our territory is all fogged. How am I supposed to know where's where? Angia's finger hovered in the air, making no move to touch the map. Just the general area. Then this area, I suppose. In the end, Angia pointed out a location, located to the northeast of their territory. The distance was indeed far. If the war really begins and you die, don't forget to terminate our contract. If I manage to survive, I can then avenge you, Angia suddenly said, out of nowhere. Fang Hao was taken aback, then said irritatedly, should I thank you for that? The contract linked Fang Hao and Angia. One of the rules was that if the master dies, the slave and hero would also die. This was the iron rule in the contract, emphasizing the importance of protecting the master. Angia was afraid that if Fang Hao died, she would be dragged down with him. No need, Angia gave Fang Hao a pat on his shoulder, apparently not registering the sarcasm in his words. Fang Hao shot her a glance, then turned to Fireblade. Fireblade, arrange for our soldiers to upgrade and strengthen the patrol around our territory. Yes, my lord. The morning meeting ended, and Fireblade went to carry out his tasks. Era had prepared breakfast. Fang Hao walked to the dining table, and Angia sat down as if she had been there all along. Breakfast was served, and the three of them ate without much conversation. Angia and Era chatted while eating, acting as if they knew each other before Fang Hao even came along. Ding! The Book of Lords sent a notification, a private message. Big brother Fang Hao, are you there? Here, Fang Hao replied. I have a blueprint. I want to exchange it for some rejuvenation springs. Sure, let's see what blueprint you have. At this stage, the demand for meat was declining continuously. There were more people selling meat in the channel. And the market wasn't as frantic as before, where any meat placed for sale would be snapped up immediately. However, Fang Hao's rejuvenation springs held a significant position in the current regional market. The daily supply of rejuvenation springs could not meet demand, accumulating rare resources for Fang Hao. Alright, Silkworm Farm Blueprint, what do you think? The other party continued. That works. Price? Fang Hao carried on questioning. 5 units of rejuvenation springs. The person didn't hesitate to speak up. 5 units are too much. That's enough for me to buy 3 of your kind of developing blueprints. 2 units, you can put it up for sale if you're willing, Fang Hao quoted directly. This wasn't Fang Hao driving the price down. Rejuvenation springs were only exchanged for rare materials and special items within the channel. The blueprints were evaluated through private chats. The silkworm farm blueprint was definitely useful. But it required silkworm rearing and silk spinning before generating any value. This slow developing process wasn't really popular now. If the silkworms can't be kept alive, he might starve to death. Hearing Fang Hao's quota, the other party remained silent for a while before agreeing reluctantly. Alright, 2 units then. I'll list it now. The person finished speaking and directly listed a specific trade. Fang Hao gave the person 2 units of rejuvenation springs, completing the transaction. The next second, he had a silkworm farm blueprint in his hand. Level 1 silkworm farm, 500 timber, 420 stones, 350 thatches, 220 leather, 180 hemp ropes, and 1 natural gem. The building materials required weren't too much, but it required 1 natural gem. It appeared the silkworm farm was a rather high-level building. After a few bites, he finished his meal. Fang Hao went straight to a vacant area and constructed the silkworm farm. A flash of light, and a seemingly ordinary wooden hut appeared in front of him. It didn't look too different from a level 1 hut. Level 1 Silkworm Farm. Category: Building. Description: the silkworm farm provides a basic environment for silkworm rearing. Upgrade requirement: 800 timber, 750 stones, 4.50 thatches, 280 leather, 220 hemp ropes, and 2 natural gems. The silkworm farm was currently empty. Like the pasture, silkworms were not included. Given that they didn't have silkworms now, Fang Hao did not continue with the upgrade. When there were silkworms available, he would consider upgrading the building. After dealing with the silkworm farm, Fang Hao returned to the room. He planned to use God's presence to go to Pigmen village and ask Petty whether she knows anything about the Skullcrusher tribe. Gathering information was crucial before war. He lay on the bed, entered God's presence mode, and the next second, he found himself in a skeleton soldier in Pigmen village. Within Pigmen village, Petty was in the Great Hall, listening to reports from several pigmen. One of the pigmen looked rather disheveled, covered in injuries. His right hand was bloodied, missing 2 fingers. Seeing the state of her subordinate, gentle Petty turned furious, her face rosy with rage. She roared loudly, "Bandits, they're nothing but a bunch of bandits. Chieftain, we should tell the Lord about this. It will be difficult for us to resolve this issue." An old pigman whispered, "Yes, Chieftain, let's send Bolton again, see what the Lord says," others also suggested. Just then, a voice sounded from the entrance. "What's the matter? You needed me for something?" Everyone turned around to find a skeleton whose eyes flickered with a mysterious blue light walking in. "My lord," everyone immediately got up to pay their respects. It wasn't the first or second time Fang Hao had appeared before them in this form. Over time, they had grown accustomed to it. Generally, those who could speak and suddenly appeared were the ones in which Fang Hao had used the undead spell to possess. Petty also quickly stood up, yielding his seat and said, "My lord." Sitting down in the vacated seat, Fang Hao curiously asked, "You were looking for me. What happened?" The injured pig-headed human nearby was pitifully noticeable. The wounds weren't that of a wild beast attack, it looked more like he had been brutally tortured. Combining this with the people's earlier conversation, it wasn't hard to guess that something had happened at Pigmen village. "The thing is, there's a Null tribe to the east of the village." Petty narrated the situation personally from the side. "Here's the thing. The full exploration of the mine allowed Pigmen village to harvest a large amount of iron ore every day. This greatly sped up the development of both Fang Hao's territory and the village itself. As time passed by, the Null tribe had discovered that the iron-eating worms of the mine were eradicated, and that a group of undead were mining instead. Fang Hao had stationed a lot of skeleton soldiers in the mining area. The Nulls did not directly wage war against the undead soldiers, but instead captured a patrolling pig-headed human and brutally tortured him, even cutting off 2 of his fingers. Additionally, the pig-headed human brought back news. The gnolls asked a lot of questions about the undead and demanded half of the mining output in the future. After Petty finished speaking, he intended to observe Fang Hao's reaction. However, the skull face before his eyes didn't disclose anything besides being frightening. Having listened to Petty's words, Fang Hao fell silent. This Gnoll tribe seemed to be contending for the mine. But they also asked a lot of questions about the undead. Because of the increasingly sensitive situation with the Skullcrusher tribe, his heart grew more concerned. Even if he was overthinking it and the Gnolls simply wanted to share in the spoils, Fang Hao would not agree. They didn't do anything yet demanded half the mining output. How shameless. How large is the Gnoll tribe's territory? Tell me about their population and military strength, said Fang Hao. Upon hearing this, joy instantly filled the hearts of the pig-headed humans. This meant that the Lord could no longer tolerate the situation and planned to take action. Petty pondered for a moment, then said, "Their clan leader is a third-tiered green hero. The population is around 2,000. Pigmen Village is definitely not their match." The population of Pigmen Village was just over 100. And there was no hero to defend it, so naturally, they were no match for the Gnolls. If it weren't for the presence of Fang Hao, the pig-headed humans would not have the right to own the mining area at all. Okay, I understand. Get ready, and when the army arrives, we will wipe them out. Having said that, Fang Hao immediately withdrew himself from the situation. Awaking from his bedroom, he picked up his magic wand, put on his armor, and walked out of the stone tower. As soon as he stepped outside, he saw Angia carrying a black iron treasure box towards him. With a bang, she threw it in front of Fang Hao. "Can you open this? Let's see if there's anything good inside." The treasure box was a special reward for the Lord after a battle. Others couldn't open it, only Fang Hao and the skeletons possessed by him could. Angia found the treasure box, fumbled with it for a while but couldn't open it. So she directly carried it back and threw it in front of Fang Hao. Fang Hao looked at the treasure box on the ground and scratched his head. Collected from the outside? He had just invoked God's presence status and not much time had passed. So where did this black iron treasure box come from? Oh, I was strolling around our territory and found a nest of forest giant spiders. That's where I saw this treasure box, Angia casually said. Fang Hao definitely didn't believe her. He had cleared the surrounding area with a team, and the territory range was patrolled by many skeletons. Not to mention forest giant spiders, even ordinary beasts kept their distance. Alright, as long as Angia isn't in danger, that's fine. Just open the treasure chest directly. Received. Beast Bonefish Spear Blueprint, Stump Stool Blueprint, Warfire Coin +1/1. Well, the luck this time is average, there isn't anything useful. Angia, where are the corpses, those of the forest giant spiders? Fang Hao asked. Thrown over there. Why? You want the corpses too? The meat is sour, it can't be eaten at all. Angia emphasized. Not that, corpses can be converted into skeleton soldiers, which can increase the number of soldiers in the territory. Oh, then I'll go back and get them. Angia was about to turn around and leave. Fang Hao quickly stopped her and said, "Forget it, come out with me later." Oh, next, Fang Hao summoned Fireblade and explained the situation about Pigmen Village. This time he wants to wipe out the Gnoll tribe directly, to ensure that the mine can be mined normally without interruption. 20,000 infantry, 5,000 skeleton ogres, 15,000 undead mages. 40,000 troops, seemingly an overkill just to wipe out the Gnoll tribe. The reason for bringing so many people is still for his own safety. Fireblade, you stay and hold the territory, Angia will go with me. Fang Hao made a choice between his two generals. The reason for choosing Angia was not because Fireblade was incapable. Instead, Fang Hao was uneasy about Angia guarding the territory, fearing that she would start her own games as soon as he left. This time, the hero of the Gnolls was only at the Green Third Order, and any of the heroes could wipe him out. Therefore, Fireblade is left to guard the territory. Yes, my lord, Fireblade expressed his understanding. After counting the troops, Fang Hao walked out of the territory with the army, heading towards Pigmen Village. On the way, Feng Hao was lying on a cart, with Angia also lying beside him. A big plant leaf shielded the sunlight overhead. Lazily, he asked, "Are you actually a human or not? If you curse me again, I'll get angry." "No, I mean, are you a living human?" Angia turns around, curiously looking at Feng Hao. "You've had several meals with me, can't you tell if I'm alive or not?" Feng Hao closed the Book of Lords and retorted, "The undead don't need to eat. In a way, not needing to eat is also an advantage. Then how come you can control these skeletons? Aren't you the illegitimate son of some undead king?" Angia continued to ask curiously. Just yesterday, he forced her to sign the contract. She was full of grievances. Now she's chasing after Feng Hao with questions. Her acceptance of reality is quite swift. "Illegitimate son? Have you ever seen a female skeleton?" Feng Hao asked in return. "How would I know? I'm asking you. It's my first time seeing the undead. I've never seen them before." Angia replied, "Due to some special opportunities, I have gained the ability to control the undead. All you need to remember is that our territory belongs to the undead faction. These undead creatures will not harm you." Feng Hao explained. "Oh, so you are human after all." The tone of Angia's voice suddenly became gloomy. She lost interest instantly. Feng Hao felt like she was still swearing at him, so he turned away and stopped paying attention to her. Time passed bit by bit, with the team moving forward without a pause. Finally, they arrived at Pigmen Village. From afar, Petty and a group of pigmen were seen waiting at the entrance. As soon as he saw Feng Hao, he came right over to Bo. "My lord. Is the room ready?" Feng Hao jumped off the cart and asked while walking. "It's ready, the same room as before." Petty spoke softly. Feng Hao walked straight into the room. 200 skeleton soldiers immediately surrounded the house. Even Petty himself wasn't allowed to approach. Angia stood outside the house, curiously observing Pigmen Village. She hadn't expected there to be an auxiliary village of orcs outside her territory. "Chief, this is Miss Angia, a hero from the Lord's side," Bolton hurriedly introduced. Then he turned to Angia and said, "Miss Angia, this is our clan leader, Petty." Upon hearing that the beast-eared girl in front of her was a hero, Petty immediately gave her respects and said, "Miss Angia. If anyone bullies you, tell me, I have your back." Angia spoke like a big sister and patted Petty's shoulder. Perhaps it was because they were both female orcs. Angia's attitude towards Petty was much friendlier than that of Bolton and the other male pigmen. She even said she would protect her. "Thank you for your kindness, Miss Angia," Petty said with a smile. Just as the two were chatting and getting to know each other better, Feng Hao invoked God's presence, possessing a skeleton warrior's body. "Let's go, Bolton, lead the way," he said. "Sure, Lord," understood Bolton, nodding. This was Angia's first time seeing Feng Hao in this state. Hearing the pigmen call him Lord, she realized that the skeleton was him. Lowering her voice, she asked, "You've skinned yourself? Are you that cruel to yourself?" "Nothing about skinning, that sounds scary. There is a green third-rank hero among the enemies. I'll leave that to you." As Feng Hao walked ahead, he briefed Angia about the situation. Angia was a blue 7th rank, with overall strength stronger than that of Fireblade without considering external factors. Soldier to soldier, general to general, this could also save many forces. "Okay," Angia readily agreed. The party set off again, led by Bolton, heading towards Null tribe's territory. Upon departing from Pigmen Village, and headed northeast, the journey became increasingly difficult. The forests were dense, and the shrubs were abundant. They moved through the forest, and after about 20 minutes, they were close to the Null tribe. "Lord, if we cross this forest, that would be the village of the Nulls. The Nulls are naturally alert. As soon as we step out, it'll draw their attention." Bolton spoke softly. Feng Hao nodded. He moved closer, peering through the gap in the trees. The buildings in the distance were part of the Null village. Through the open city gates, the interior of the tribe could be seen. Tents dotted the landscape, appearing like a large tent gathering. While they were secretly observing, a howling sound emerged from the Null tribe. Then, the busy Nulls nearby swiftly returned to the tribe, and looked towards the hidden location of Feng Hao and his party from afar. "Lord, it looks like they've found us," Bolton said with a wry smile. So alert. At this moment, a gnoll emerged from the tribe, tall, with a rusty machete hanging from his waist. He climbed the city wall and loudly said, "Come out. There's no point playing turtle now." "This is the leader of the gnolls, Claw Terror, Nego," Bolton quietly introduced, the reason why the gnolls acted so aggressively and arrogantly in the nearby area, plundering resources at will, was because of Nego's existence. Whether a power has a hero, and the strength of that hero, greatly affects their status in this area. Not everyone is like Fang Hao, possessing an army strength in tens of thousands due to his 100 times amplification. "Let's go out," Fang Hao said, leading Bolton and several others out. Bolton, Fang Hao, and Angia were the first to emerge from the bushes. Seeing Bolton appear, the gnoll was momentarily surprised, then burst into laughter. "Bolton, what's this? Has your clan chief come up with a solution? Did you bring me a woman?" "She's too ugly. Have your clan chief accompany me for a few days, then everyone will be happy." But the laughter didn't last long. When hordes of skeleton warriors, towering skeleton ogres, and undead mages appeared, Nego's face quickly turned serious, his eyes filled with murderous intent. "You pigmen actually dared to collude with the undead? What are we waiting for? I'm going to rip his mouth apart." Angia removed the tiger's claw from her waist and wore it on her hand. Although she didn't care about others' opinions, no one had ever dared to call her ugly. At this moment, a hero with lower strength than hers dared to insult her. It made Angia's heart burn with anger. Fang Hao also didn't waste words, he directly said, "Form a formation and advance, mages attack from a distance." With Fang Hao's command, the infantry formed a spear formation and advanced forward. The undead mages began to chant magic spells, with black magic missiles shooting towards the enemies on the wall like parabolic lines. Bang bang bang. When magic missiles exploded, gnoll warriors were blasted away. The effects of the dark attribute began to spread among the crowd, demoralizing the troops. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The gnoll archers began to retaliate, arrows whistling out, hitting the shields making a crackling sound. Despite the intensive arrows, the skeleton soldiers quickly advanced beneath the city walls and began the assault on the gate. The tall skeleton ogre, with the crude ladder, rapidly approaches the city wall. Bang! The battle axe in their hands slashed into the city wall, and a whole row of archers were hacked into mincemeat. Next, they simply put the ladder right by the city wall, and the skeleton soldiers beneath the city began to climb the wall. Then, there was a loud roar beneath the city. The city gate fell under the attack. Skeleton soldiers surged into the city like swarms returning to their nests, engaging in brutal melee combat. Inside the city, the gnoll soldiers, facing the surging bone wave, were as weak as tofu. The fierce and bloodthirsty orcs seemed so powerless and frail at this moment. Nego stood at the back of his troops, glancing at his rapidly declining subordinates, his eyes red, his face ferocious. "A bunch of low-level undead, I'm going to kill you all and then skin all the pigmen." He roared, his knees slightly bent, then leapt high in the air, the cleaver in his hand over his head. Bang! A dull sound blasted, the cleaver slashed straight over a skeleton ogre's body, cleaving it from shoulder to waist. The body was severed into two halves, scattering into a pile of white bones. Nego landed, his cleaver swung into a shadowy flurry, which crushed all the surrounding skeleton attackers. For a moment, it stopped the skeleton soldiers from getting close. "Make way, you go kill others." Suddenly, a voice emerged from behind the skeletons. Although the skeletons couldn't speak, they could understand commands. They didn't surround Nego any longer, but bypassed him to continue killing other gnolls. As they pulled away, Angia, the orc maiden, wearing the tiger's claw, stepped forward. Nego stared coldly at Angia, his voice icy. "Little lady, are you seeking death? I've killed more people than you've seen." "Ugly freak," Angia muttered, stretching her neck. "Seeking death." Nego cursed angrily, his body steaming with a bloody mist, his eyes turning even more crimson. The next second, his cleaver suddenly swung up, slashing towards Angia's ribs. Skill. Bone picking. Nego's knife strike was swift and ruthless, coming in at an incredibly tricky angle. If it were someone else, They would probably have been cleaved into two before they could even register the move. Falling to the ground and breathing their last. But Angia remained calm and composed. Without much thought, she lifted her hand and her metal tiger's claw worked to counter Nigo's most powerful strike. Clang! The sound of metal colliding rang out, the resulting blast causing clothes to flutter. Then, her other hand smoothly delivered another punch. Boom! Her fist burst forward, causing the ground beneath Nigo to shatter. His body, as if struck by a metal ball, instantly flew back several meters, a pitiful sight. Is that all you've got? Anija sneered without launching another attack. Nigo's face turned more serious, wiping the trail of blood from the corner of his mouth. He realized that the seemingly young woman before him was a hero of a higher rank than himself. Have you gone mad? You're aiding the undead, we should be on the same side. Nigo was no longer arrogant, he roared accusatively, furious at Angia for siding with the undead. Yo, just a moment ago you were threatening to kill me, Angia retorted, advancing step by step. We are of the same race. Together, we can definitely kill these undead. And then I'll let you be the clan leader. Nigo argued desperately, his grip tightening around his combat knife. No need, you're too ugly. Then let's see who dies, Nigo said as he thrust himself forward from the ground, charging at Angia. He rapidly swung his combat knife, a myriad of sword shadows inundating Angia. Angia remained composed, engaging in fist dance combat with her adversary. The speed of their moves grew faster and faster, their attacks more relentless. Seeing that he was on the losing end, Nigo gritted his teeth. With a flick, he deflected Angia's attack with his combat knife. Baring his full set of fangs, he lunged his mouth towards Angia's neck. Angia smirked. Skill. Red tooth. With a quick turn of her waist, her elbow stuck out like a fang and collided with Nigo's temple. Bam! With a thud to his head, Nigo's body stiffened for a moment then went limp. Outside the village, Feng Hao was chatting with Bolton. This type of battle posed no fear for him. Within his territory, the more combat there was, the more rapid his development and the greater the scale of his army. An effective war could greatly enhance his strength. Soon, the battle gradually came to an end. The cries of battle within the tribe also diminished and slowly died down, restoring calm. Feng Hao, leading Bolton, started heading inside the village. Just as they reached the entrance, he saw Angia in the distance, dragging a bloody figure as if he were a dead dog. If it weren't for the slight rise and fall of the figure's chest, Feng Hao would have thought he was already dead. Is this their leader? Feng Hao inquired curiously. Yeah, I figured you could use him, so I didn't kill him, Angia replied matter-of-factly. Good, Feng Hao said. He beckoned to several skeletons, tie him up and if he resists, kill him. Over a dozen of the undead creatures picked up hemp ropes and began to bind Nigo tightly. Actually, Feng Hao's concerns were unnecessary. Given Nigo's condition, he was barely left alive. Handing Nigo over to the skeletons, Angia immediately caught up with Feng Hao's pace and asked, what's next? Loot the place. Take everything valuable. Awesome, I'm on it, Angia exclaimed cheerfully. She discovered that she actually got along with Feng Hao quite well. The trio entered the inner part of the tribe. The Null village, to tell the truth, was not very large. Although it was still much better than the small Pigman village. But it simply could not compare to the Fireblade tribe. Both in terms of architectural scale and resource reserves, it fell far behind. Clean up the battlefield, gather resources, remove everything from the tents, and dismantle the tents. Feng Hao immediately ordered. The skeletons standing by sprung into action immediately. They cleaned up the battlefield and began the dismantling work. Feng Hao then led his two companions straight into the Null clan leader's hall. Ordinary wooden furniture, animal horn chandeliers, nothing of great value. Then they moved to the inner chamber. While Angia began to rummage around haphazardly, Feng Hao immediately spotted a silver treasure chest in the corner. He walked over and opened the chest directly. Obtained. Blueprint for marching tent, blueprint for leather stand. Blueprint for improved leather boots, 80 warfire coins, 4 beast teeth. All 3 items were blueprints, along with 80 warfire coins and 4 beast teeth that orcs used in construction. Behind him, Angia was rummaging through the cabinets. Whether useful or not, everything was dumped onto the ground. Hey, Fang Hao, is this a letter? It's all text. Angia, holding a piece of paper, handed it to Fang Hao. He took it and looked at the content. As a transmigrator to this world, he was endowed with the abilities to understand both the spoken and written language. While the paper was written in bizarre orcish text, Fang Hao could understand its content. It was a letter written by Nigo himself, yet it hadn't been sent out. The letter mentioned that he had detected a connection between the pigmen tribe and the undead. If necessary, Nigo could lead his clan to eliminate the pigmen village. The intended recipient of this letter was the great chief Sha. That is, Skullcrusher, Sha. Fang Hao's eyes narrowed, his mind filled with surprise. This Null clan leader actually had contacts with the Skullcrusher tribe in the Cold Mountain Range. What a coincidence. Why would such a small village of a few thousand inhabitants have access to this information? Suddenly, a thought struck Fang Hao. Bronze Bull, Taylok's clan had 3,000 members, and they too had received the news of the Skullcrusher tribe targeting the undead territory. Then it was believable that this 1,000-strong Null tribe could be in contact with the Skullcrusher tribe as well. Going deeper, could Bronze Bull also be in contact with the Skullcrusher tribe and not be telling him the truth? After all, he had only met Bronze Bull twice. They could hardly be called friends. At most they were partners. Angia, stop rummaging. We'll take these pieces of furniture later. Let's go out first. Fang Hao called out to her. Aren't we searching anymore? Let's leave this to the soldiers. We are going to interrogate that Null. Packing the items he got, Fang Hao got up and walked out. Hearing that they were going to start the interrogation, Angia followed him out. They let the skeletons carry all the furniture and items out. The two then went straight to Nigo. At this point, Nigo was tied up like a bundle, but the powerful recovery ability of the orcs had already improved his appearance greatly. He was no longer a mangy dead dog. Nigo, how did you know that Sha is planning to deal with the undead? Fang Hao sat down in front of him and asked softly. Nigo glared viciously at the two, then immediately turned his head to the side. He remained silent. Thud, Angia kicked him directly in the stomach, sending his body flying out like a sandbag. Two skeletons immediately went over and dragged the far-flung Nigo back. If you're unwilling to speak, I'll leave you to her. You're both orcs, maybe you can find some common ground, Fang Hao said. Nigo cast a fearful glance at Angia. He spat out the blood in his mouth, and said, Not long ago, the scouting team from the Skullcrusher tribe came by. They said they had news to tell them, and they would reward me. How many times have you corresponded through letters? Fang Hao continued to ask. The other party's words were nearly impossible to verify for authenticity, but that didn't really matter. Any information was better than nothing, and he didn't plan on letting Nigo go anyway. There haven't been any, the letter is still in your hands, it hasn't been sent out yet. Nigo gritted his teeth and said. He was regretful at this moment. If he hadn't wasted time talking to the pigmen, he wouldn't have attracted these undeads and the irritable woman in front of him. How many troops will they dispatch this time, and when will they make their move? Fang Hao continued to ask. How should I know? I've never been to the Coldwind Mountains. Only seen their reconnaissance team, nearly 100 of them. Nigo seemed somewhat wronged. All right, watch him, Fang Hao said, in the short time while he was asking these questions. The skeletons had finished scavenging. All the items were piled up in the center of the vacant land, forming a small hill. Equipment: 18Z.0 null machetes, 455 null bows, 15 bundles of iron arrows, 1450 leather armors. Resources: 882 wriggling spines, 31,208 wood, 25,102 stone, 5,775 straw, 355,410 leather, 725 iron, 220 copper, 240 warfire coins. Miscellaneous: 345 baskets of fruits, 10,472 units of meat, 820 units of salt. Furniture: 2,000 simple wooden beds, 800 various cabinets, 400 tables and chairs, 4 beast horn chandeliers, some pots and pans, curtains and fabrics. The furniture of the Null tribe was average at best, not even as good as what was scavenged from the Fireblade tribe, but these were also harvests. With enough hands at their disposal, they naturally wanted to take everything back. From this haul, it was clear that these gnolls were skilled hunters. The harvest of leather and meat was high, significantly more than what a village of this scale would normally store. All right, load everything up, take all the items back, Feng Hao continued to order. One by one, flatbed carts were pushed out from the forest. All the spoils of war, including the captured prisoner Nigo, were thrown onto the carts. They started to return to the pigmen village. Feng Hao was the first to exit the god's present state and came out of the room. Petty was still waiting at the door and asked, "Sir, you've come out. What's the situation with the gnolls?" The threat from the gnolls was like a thorn in her heart, with the passing time making her worry more and more intense. If Feng Hao couldn't eradicate the gnolls this time, given Nigo's personality, he would definitely launch a frenzied revenge against the pigmen village. By then, it wouldn't be as simple as negotiations. Therefore, whether Feng Hao's battle could be successful or not was something she was more worried about than anyone else. "It's already settled, the team is on their way back," Feng Hao replied with a smile. Petty took a deep breath. Her two big ears flapped, she patted her full chest and said, that's good, that's good. "Do you know about the Skullcrusher tribe in Coldwind Mountains?" Feng Hao asked Petty. Feng Hao learned from Nal Nigo that the Skullcrusher scouting party had come before he had taken control of the pigmen village, which meant they probably visited the pigmen village before Feng Hao stationed skeleton soldiers there. The Skullcrusher tribe? Petty furrowed her brows, trying to remember. In the end, she shook her head and said, "I haven't heard of it. Is it a nearby tribe?" Petty wouldn't deceive him. She and Feng Hao shared a master-servant relationship. If Feng Hao were in danger, she wouldn't survive either. Therefore, Petty definitely didn't know if she said she didn't. "It's in the Coldwind Mountains. It's said to be quite a large tribe," Feng Hao explained. "Sir, Pigmen Village is too small. We haven't been able to interact with such forces," Petty said, seeming helpless. "No problem." While the two were talking, the skeleton army, along with several wagons, emerged from the outer edges of the village. The copious amount of furniture and supplies that appeared before everyone signified the victory of this battle. "Petty, see if there's any furniture you can use. Store all the resources in the warehouse," Feng Hao instructed. "Yes, sir." Pigmen Village is a subsidiary village, affiliated under the Book of Lords. Their warehouses are interconnected. For instance, during construction, materials can be shared across both places without the need to transfer resources back and forth. Petty started giving orders, categorizing and selecting supplies, or moving them to the warehouse. Meanwhile, Feng Hao was swapping the troops around. All the skeleton soldiers originally stationed at Pigmen Village were replaced with level 2 troops. The Tier 1 troops followed Feng Hao back to his territory to be promoted. The Lord's Mansion and the White Bone Throne both provided a marching speed boost. This allowed the team to reduce the time consumed on the road. By around 2 in the afternoon, the whole troop had already returned to their territory. "Feng Hao, what should we do with this guy?" Angia dragged Nigo down directly. She seemed a bit impatient with having to drag around such a burden. "He might still be of use. Let Fireblade arrange someone to lock him up," Feng Hao said. "Oh," Angia replied before dragging Nigo off to find Fireblade. Feng Hao also commanded the skeletons to unload all the furniture at the designated area. Furniture like bedside cabinets and wardrobes were not easy to sell in the area channel. After being listed, they could only sell a few in a day. The majority would be distributed to the Pigmen Village and the newly joined Rabbitmen. After Era prepares lunch for Feng Hao and the others and they have finished eating, Feng Hao begins to create the latest blueprints. This time, he obtained 3 manufacturing blueprints in total. They were the blueprint for marching tent, blueprint for leatherworking rack, and blueprint for improved leather boots. They wouldn't use the marching tent for now. The skeleton army didn't need tents, even when they were outside. The focus was on creating the items from the other blueprints. Leatherworking rack, 12 wood, 3 iron, 3 metal parts. Description: can turn ordinary beast skin into thick leather. Another tool for upgrading basic materials. Materials are plentiful, so go ahead and make it. 100-fold amplification triggered. You obtained 101 leatherworking racks. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A collection of leatherworking racks had appeared in front of Fang Hao. Leatherworking rack. Placement. Workers 0/1. Raw material. Beast skin 2. Product. Thick leather. Description. By multiple processes, makes ordinary beast skin into high-quality thick leather. Just as expected. Luckily, as this is from a blueprint, the 100-fold amplification triggered and gained him directly 101 leatherworking racks. Going outside the territory, he selected 101 skeletal laborers from the logging area. He made them use the leatherworking racks to upgrade the leather. At this time, looking at the number of skeletons, the workforce within the territory was increasingly insufficient. Once the issues with the Skullcrusher tribe have been settled, he will need to purchase some slaves to expand the population within the territory. He can't expect the skeletal laborers to do all the work. The 40 female rabbit slaves that he bought had also been assigned work. In addition to sanitation within the territory, they were also assigned to the ranch, farm, and stables. The advantage of the skeletal laborer is that they don't have a physical limit and can persistently work. Most of the time spent in the farm after sowing and watering is just watching over it. Placing skeletons in places like farms and ranches wouldn't exhibit their advantage. So, he had the Rabbitman clan do the work there instead. After settling the leatherworking racks, he continued to check out improved leather boots. Improved leather boots. Thick leather 3, thread 2, metal parts 2. Enhanced leather boots. Thick leather 3, yarn 2, metal parts 2. Yarn is a general term. Both flax and cotton yarn are referred to as yarn. He has metal parts, but thick leather has to be processed with a leather rack before it comes out as a finished product. He started crafting now. There was still plenty of time, and the unknown sense of danger brought by the Skullcrusher made him tense. In the following time, Fang Hao once again opened the Book of Lords to review the newly obtained map. This map was purchased yesterday from Manum Tavern, located in the southwest direction of Manum Market. It's called Mysterious Cave. If he set off now, there was enough time to return to the territory before nightfall. On this departure, the configuration remained the same as before, with a force of 50,000 soldiers. And Angia accompanying. Taking into consideration the cave, he had prepared plenty of torches. He returned to his room and manifested God's presence onto one of the skeleton soldiers. Then, with most of his troops, he left the territory in a mighty procession once again. 3 hours later, Fang Hao and others finally arrived at this mysterious cave with the help of the map. It was different from what Fang Hao had imagined. This cave was not a hole in the mountain but a huge pit hole on the ground with a diameter of about 5 meters. Instead of forming naturally, it seemed more like a hole collapsed after an earthquake. Standing near the hole, he could feel a chilly and uncomfortable feeling coming from within. How did someone record this and sell it as a blueprint? Angia looked down into the cave and asked. In her opinion, this was just a big hole formed by geological changes. It wasn't worth 1 Warfire coin at all. Fang Hao ignored her and looked down too. Under the cave was a pool of water. He didn't know whether it was from the original mountain or accumulated rainwater. The sides of the pool were rocks covered with moss. And through the dark depths, he could faintly see a small path leading further inside. Make a rope ladder, prepare to go down. Fang Hao shouted out the order. Adhering to his principle of frugality, Fang Hao, whenever leading his troops out, would have the skeletons push a substantial number of carts, so that any spoils of war could be brought back. It was the same this time, more than 100 carts, equipped with prepared hemp ropes. Upon hearing Fang Hao's commands, the skeletons started knotting the ropes, making them into rope ladders. When everything was ready, they lit the torches and started climbing down the rope ladder into the cave. The torchlight illuminated the surroundings. On the side of the pool, there was indeed a passage leading to the depths. Ah, damn! Suddenly, Angia, who was standing behind, made Fang Hao, who was contemplating the passage, shudder unexpectedly. The torch in his hand almost dropped. Why are you and Undead so nervous? Angia asked. You scared me. What's up? Fang Hao replied, annoyed, I just want to ask, was this dug by humans? Angia ran her hand over the cave wall. Fang Hao approached the wall and scrutinized it carefully. He could indeed see some marks left by tools. But it didn't seem as if it was entirely dug out. It appeared more like an existing hole that had been artificially expanded. It looks like it's been expanded twice over. It seems like there might be something interesting inside. Fang Hao replied, nodding, exploring, I like it. Angia was quite enthusiastic. If there's danger, retreat first. Fang Hao reminded her. After all, he was using God's presence, and his other troops were also skeleton soldiers. If Angia encountered danger, it would indeed be dangerous. Fang Hao didn't want Nelson to turn her into a skeleton hero either. All right, got it, Angia casually replied. About 100 skeleton soldiers had come down. The skeleton ogres, due to their huge size, simply could not descend. The remaining skeleton soldiers stayed above. If they encountered any danger, this would allow them to respond in a timely manner. Once everything was ready, the 200 skeletons headed directly into the cave. The cave was dark and deep, the flickering glow of the torches reflected on the cave walls, turning them into an orange-red hue. As they delved deeper, the caliber of the tunnel increasingly widened. There were no intersections, just a straight path leading further in. Fang Hao cast a careful look at the ores on either side of the mountain. They weren't any specific type of ore and held no value for mining. The journey continued. As they emerged from the cave, an expansive underground space revealed itself. A giant palace was carved out by human hands. The carvings on the wall were lifelike, with glowing nightstone lanterns sporadically placed every few meters, emanating a faint light. Do people live here? Angia whispered in a low voice. I don't think so. The damp and cold here is bound to give one rheumatism, Fang Hao replied. Even if it were a skeleton living here, moss would definitely grow on its bones. What's rheumatism? Nothing important, there's definitely treasures to be found here. Fang Hao deflected the subject. True, Angia said, her excitement evident in her expression. Who could resist the allure of an imminent treasure? Extinguishing their torches, the few people stepped into the main hall. As they entered, slight creaking sounds echoed from both sides. Within the dim light emitted by the nightstones, 4 figures detached themselves from the wall, moving about mechanically. Stone Monster Construct Warrior, rank 5. Citing the attributes of the opponents, Fang Hao's pupils constricted slightly. These stone monsters were unlike any regular creatures. They were covered in stone armor, complex patterns carved into the armor. Their hands held a long blade showing signs of rust and decay. Seeing that the creatures were rank 5, Fang Hao furrowed his brow. This was a type of creature he'd never encountered before. He'd assumed they were stone people or stone spirits or the like. He didn't expect them to be called stone monster constructs. Watching the stone monsters, moving their rigid bodies slowly towards him, Fang Hao gave the command to prepare for battle. Form ranks, prepare for battle. The skeleton army sprang into action. They quickly formed a battle formation, their spears targeting the approaching stone monsters. Why so tense? There's no threat, Angia said, pushing off the ground and morphing into a shadow charging towards a stone monster. Her right arm slightly bent, she sent a punch flying. Boom! With the dispersion of her energy, a loud rumble echoed. The chest of the stone monster suddenly shattered, revealing gears and several metallic components inside. Holy, a robot! The sight startled Fang Hao into an outburst. Apparently, the stones wrapped around the exterior were merely a shell. The interior was akin to a complex, precise structure. Fang Hao was surprised, but Angia didn't hold back at all. Her punch was powerful, knocking the stone monster backwards like a punching bag, until it finally shattered into fragments. After defeating one, without pausing, she rushed towards another, fists and kicks flying everywhere. In contrast to Angia's overwhelming and violent style, Fang Hao's side was having a bit more difficulty. Due to the limited space, only 100 skeleton soldiers had made it inside. Even if they still had numerical advantage, to Fang Hao, it wasn't truly a war of attrition. Even muttering under his breath, daring them to go outside for a fair fight. Clang, Clang! Spears and swords continuously chopped at the stone monsters, creating a symphony of clanging sounds. The battle lasted over 10 minutes. Fang Hao's skeleton squad had taken down 2 stone monsters, while Angia eliminated 4. On her own. Here, see what this is for. Angia tossed over a jade-like round sphere. It was completely translucent, allowing him to see the energetic bluish-white turbulence inside. Energy core. Category: Energy medium. Description: Small construct energy crystal, storing powerful energy within. Essential energy core for the operation of a construct. Based on the introduction of the energy core, Fang Hao understood its purpose. It's just a battery, a tool that provides an energy source. Let's see if there's anything else we can dismantle from these things. Fang Hao pointed to the disassembled constructs on the ground. The skeletons began to act. In total, they obtained 6 energy cores, 12 metal parts, 4 precision parts. There was also a rusty metal knife. The weapon had nothing special, white equipment, and had already been corroded beyond recognition by the dampness. Fang Hao had the blueprint for metal parts, but he didn't expect to get precision parts here. The last time he got the blueprint of a fire gun, one of the components was precision parts. All the items obtained were carefully stored, and everyone continued to advance. This place is like a subterranean palace. When they reached the end, they saw an arched brick tunnel leading to the next area. Below the corridor, there was a black iron treasure chest. Now seeing a black iron level treasure chest, Fang Hao was not too surprised. He once prayed before opening a chest, greeting various gods of fortune. Now, he was more discerning, and anything less than gold did not catch his eye. He opened the chest directly, and a light appeared. Obtained: Black Iron Knight Sword Blueprint, Green, Low-Level Mental Potion, 11 Warfire Coins. A green sword popped out. Skeleton warriors had sword and shield mastery, but the weapon in their hands was a white iron sword. Now that he had obtained a green single-handed sword, it was just right to equip all soldiers with better gear. Black Iron Knight Sword, Green, 3 cast iron blocks, 1 tough wood, 1 leather. Good lord, this Black Iron Knight Sword, 2 out of its 3 materials were of level 2. Other than Fang Hao, most lords, even if they got the blueprint, would have difficulty making it. After looking at the Black Iron Knight Sword, he continued to look at the lower grade mental potion. Low-level mental potion. Type: Potion. Effect: Restores a certain amount of spiritual power. He had obtained a healing potion once before. When Dong Jiayue was injured, he had given it to her through the trading platform. Today, he also got a spiritual potion that restores spiritual power. He placed all spoils of war in his bag and continued to the next level through the corridor with his command of people and horses. The second level, similar to the first, was somewhat smaller, but the decoration was a bit more lavish. Apart from carvings on the walls, there are parts where colored patterns can be seen. They depict some status of human life. This caused Fang Hao to fall into deep thought. Is this a tomb? It feels somewhat like a cemetery. On both sides of the wall, there were still statue-like Stone Monster Construct Warriors, level 5. Stone Monster Construct Spearmen, level 5. Stone Monster Construct Fire Lizards, level 5. Compared to the first level, the second level had an increased number of stone monsters, reaching a total of 12. Among them, the Fire Lizard construct was not a humanoid construct. Rather, it was more like a giant lizard, a crocodile made of stone. As they entered, the stone construct monsters once again broke free from their shackles, taking slow steps to kill the invaders. Prepare for battle, Angia, take it easy, don't damage the core. Fang Hao raised his shield and reminded. Although he didn't know the specific function of the energy core, it was certainly a valuable item. He didn't want to wreck it as much as possible but rather collect some. Alright, Angia responded and couldn't wait any longer, hurtling towards the stone monster. For a blue level 7 hero dealing with these level 5 creatures, it was indeed simple. However, it was not so easy for Fang Hao. The weapon in his hand smacked against the stone monster, making a clanging sound. But the stone monster's power was great. Each ordinary slash, even if blocked with an iron shield, would force the level 2 skeleton to retreat several steps. Whoosh! At that moment, a fire lizard stone monster, quickly charged to the front of the formation. Opening its wide mouth, it spat out a blaze. Several skeleton warriors were set alight, burnt to ashes in the large fire. Disperse and attack, first target the fire lizard stone monster. A moment of shock passed through Fang Hao as he quickly issued the command. The formation swiftly dispersed, all focusing their attacks on the fire lizard stone monsters in a chaotic frenzy. 20 minutes later, they finally achieved victory. Looking at the scattered stone parts and white bones on the ground, he gently shook his head. Even though they had eradicated all the stone monsters in this area, the casualties among the skeletons were also high. They had lost more than 80 skeleton soldiers, and the remaining ones were in a ragged state. Angia, take the team to clean up the battlefield. I'll go and summon more skeletons, commanded Fang Hao. Angia shrugged her shoulders indifferently, indicating that Fang Hao could call the shots. Fang Hao had a strange feeling. Was it just him, or had Angia become more obedient? Maybe she had grown up overnight? Fang Hao pulled out, and summoned another 300 skeleton soldiers. This time, the entire area was instantly crowded. Gathering the loot. 12 energy cores, 21 metal parts, 8 precision parts. Similarly, at the end of the area, was a passageway to the next area. To the side, there was a black iron chest. Opening the chest. Blacksmith shop blueprint, wooden mask blueprint, 2 health potions, 12 warfire coins. This second area actually produced a blueprint for a blacksmith shop. Personally, Fang Hao felt that a blacksmith shop wasn't of much use to him. Whether it was weapons or armor, he made everything using the Book of Lords. With the 100-fold amplification effect, he could quickly produce a large amount of equipment. It was just that his territory was still rather remote. If he expanded his market in the future, he could sell equipment to all the races in the area. On his own, this would definitely be a major war profiteer. So, a blacksmith shop, or rather a blacksmith, was not necessary for him. Of course, since the blueprint turned up, he would build it when he got back. To increase the productivity of his territory. Inspecting the second blueprint. Wooden mask, green. Category. Mask blueprint. Ability. Level 1 fear. Level 1 fear. Wearing the mask has a chance to invoke level 1 fear status, causing the enemy, living creatures, squads to experience fear, demoralization and other negative states. Fear effect can't be stacked, it takes the maximum level of fear value. Description. The mask originated as a mold for construct facial armor. With modifications over time, it has formed into the mask we have today. The mask is painted with various ghoul-like faces, causing unease and fear in those who see it. Not bad, another piece of equipment. When fighting against the Skullcrusher tribe, I'll have all the skeletons wear these masks. Even if there's a chance of inducing fear, with an army of thousands, that chance multiplies exponentially. I'll scare the hell out of you. There is nothing special about the health potion, we've gotten it before. Put away everything, continue to the next level. Passing through the long, narrow corridor. Immediately entered the third area. Also, the last area, the Nightstone lanterns were replaced with gold ones. And there were many burial objects like pottery, jewelry, decaying and ruined paintings, etc. They were referred to as burial objects because at the end of the area in front, there was a stone coffin. However, the crust of the earth here had experienced a fracture, causing a large part of the stone coffin to collapse. This area did not have the stone monster constructs of the previous two areas. At the center of the location, a new type of construct, 2 meters tall and covered in iron armor, was kneeling. Iron monster construct, level 7. The iron monster stood tall, its entire body clad in metallic armor. It held a long, curved blade and knelt in the center of the hall, as if shielding the stone coffin behind it. From a distance, it created a sense of oppression. Any problems? Should we call more people over? Fang Hao turned his head and whispered. Do you think I, a 7th rank hero, can't defeat this 7th rank soldier? Angia scoffed. True enough, in the previous 2 regions, most of the stone monsters were defeated by Angia. It was only Fang Hao's insistence that the energy cores were valuable that made her hold back. Up to this point, she remained unscathed. So, you're taking up this one? Fang Hao said. Sure, it irritates me, Angia flexed her fingers, brimming with battle intent. Feng Hao nodded without further ado. If Angia could defeat it, well and good. If any danger arose, he still had time to send all their soldiers for rescue. Once they agreed on everything, they proceeded into the region. The iron monster, which had been kneeling, began to shake, scattering accumulated dust. Laboriously, like a piece of machinery, it gradually stood, lifting its curved blade. Angia advanced step by step, bobbing her head as if about to enter a boxing match. As they approached each other, the battle started. Thud, the iron monster's curved blade came down onto Angia's head. In a swift pivot, she dodged the attack, landing a punch at the monster's waist. Boom! Enormous energy ripped through the air, dust flying. The iron monster's armor instantly sunk in at the waist. Feeling the attack, the monster turned around, once again raising its blade. Angia's second and third punches rained down, relentlessly slamming into the monster's body like raindrops. The iron monster stumbled back again and again. By the time it steadied itself, its armor was dented and uneven, a pitiful sight. And yet, as an iron statue, it neither knew fear nor death. Once again standing up, it gaped open its mouth, energy beginning to coagulate. Energy rays as thick as a spear shot out from its mouth. The rays, filled with terrifying power, were aimed directly at Angia. This unexpected move left both Angia and Feng Hao stunned. This iron monster could fight from a distance. Angia, not daring to take a direct hit, did a somersault to escape. Swiftly, she charged towards the iron monster, leaping high, her bloody fangs on display. Boom! With a roar, the entire hall shook. The iron monster's head was seemingly wrenched off by a colossal force. Cleanly breaking off at the neck and flying off. Roll, roll, the iron monster's head rolled to Feng Hao's feet, sparks flashing from its mouth. Angia thrust her hand into the iron monster's chest, extracting its energy core, and threw it to Feng Hao. He promptly stashed it in his backpack. Leading a group of skeletons, they stepped over the iron monster's corpse and headed straight towards the stone coffin. The stone coffin seemed to have been carved from a natural rock. Its base connected with the mountain itself. Whether due to earth crust movement or an earthquake, a huge crack had split open the stone coffin. Half of the coffin had collapsed under the weight of the rocks. Open it, Feng Hao commanded. A few skeletons stepped forward, working together to push open the remaining half of the coffin lid, revealing the coffin's interior. Inside the coffin was mostly empty, with only black residues and stains outlining a human figure. Over time, the body itself had completely rotted away. Damn it, there's not even a body. What a loss, Feng Hao cursed under his breath. Search around, gather everything that can be carried, and peel off the iron monster's skin as well. Feng Hao continued issuing orders. He couldn't let this journey be in vain. Even if the coffin was empty, there were still jewelry and treasure chests hidden around. All the skeletons dispersed at once, beginning to scour for items. Lanterns, nightstones, intact utensils, and jewelry were all collected. Once everything was gathered, they prepared to leave. At last, one of the skeletons found a golden treasure chest and brought it directly to Feng Hao. Just as Feng Hao was about to open the chest, a scolding echoed from a distance. Looking for death. Feng Hao quickly glanced over and saw Angia springing towards a dark corner, throwing punches at it. Boom! Dust and debris flew in the dark corner. A transparent female figure floated out from the shadows, hovering in mid-air, glaring at everyone. The woman had distinct features and an attractive figure. However, she hovered in the air, translucent throughout and looked like a ghost straight out of a movie. Wandering spirit, rank 3. A ghost? A real specter. All the skeleton soldiers rushed towards Feng Hao swiftly, readying for a battle. Wait. As everyone was preparing for the battle, the female ghost abruptly drifted backwards and said aloud. Her voice had an ethereal quality to it. Hold your attack, let's see what she has to say, Feng Hao directly commanded. Angia stopped mid-charge, but maintained her steely gaze on the shadow spirit. Lord of the Undead, I am just a lonely spirit born within this ancient tomb. I do not wish for conflict with you. You may take any item from here as you please. The ghost pleaded hastily. She had witnessed the entire battle from a dark corner. She was well aware that with her rank 3 strength, She would stand no chance against this team, or rather, the female hero. The items in the tomb had no use to her. If they wanted to take them, she would let them. Hearing her words, Feng Hao paused in surprise. This rank 3 shadow spirit could speak, an indication of high-level intelligence. Communication with her was entirely normal. Are you the spirit of the body in the coffin, or did you come afterwards? Feng Hao inquired. I apologize, my lord. I found myself here when I awakened, with no past memories, the ghost replied. If she awoke here, she must be the spirit of the body in the stone coffin. You don't mind us taking the items here? Feng Hao asked curiously. Not at all. At the same time, I hope, my lord, you will allow me to join you, to lead me out of here, the ghost continued. This unexpected request left Feng Hao taken aback. The ghost had clearly given the matter a lot of thought. Being a spirit of the undead, but not particularly strong, she dared not approach the iron monster even while living in the tomb. During the battle between Feng Hao's team and the monster, she had thought hard about her predicament. Answering the desire to live and leave this cave. Why not seize the opportunity to join an undead force? It was at least a kind of backing and a chance of development. You want to leave with me? Yes, my lord, I offer all my faith and loyalty to serve you until the day I die. The ghost replied, floating in the air before going down on one knee. Her memory might have gone, but her intelligence remained intact. These words of hers sounded like a formal declaration, an official one at that. I cannot fully trust you based on your words alone. I have a slave contract in my possession. If you don't mind signing it, I could promise to protect you. Once your actions prove your loyalty, I can cancel the slave contract. Feng Hao looked at the ghost and asked, Are you willing? Don't even mention the phantom fox right before his eyes, who is a wild undead. He wouldn't even trust Era, a bunny girl who appeared weak at first glance, when he first met her. Only by signing a contract and limiting the other party by rules would he feel safe to leave them alone. If this female ghost was willing to sign a contract, he would be willing to add another type of soldier to his territory. Having a newly born undead creature with such high wisdom could potentially trigger a hidden plotline. However, if she wasn't willing, Feng Hao naturally wouldn't insist, claiming what he could and going on his own separate ways. The air fell into a silence. After several seconds of silence, the wandering spirit finally spoke. Master, I'm willing to sign a contract with you. Finishing her words, she made an elegant bow. Good, let me welcome you in advance. Once we have finished sorting out the items here, you may follow us back to the territory, said Feng Hao. Yes, master. The skeleton soldiers began their operation, starting to comb through the entire hall. The spirit quickly adapted to the role, proactively leading the skeletons and unveiling every tucked-away item. Meanwhile, Feng Hao took advantage of this time to start opening the treasure chest. A flash of light. An item appeared before Feng Hao. Acquired. Black iron open-faced helmet blueprint, green, simple hand saw blueprint, green. Sound transmitting shell, stone monster assembly blueprint, blue. Golden mammoth assembly blueprint, purple, mammoth assembly troop saddle, blue. Healing potion X5, warfire coin X220. Swish, swish, swish. The dazzling light of the blueprints almost blinded him. Blueprints cluttered in front of Feng Hao. These blueprints included a wide variety. Equipment blueprints, tool blueprints, and even blueprints of assembled structures. He had just encountered the power of these assembled structures. Even the initial stone monster, with its layer of stone armor, was impervious to swords and spears. Confronted with the hacking of a horde of skeletons, it had only caused sparks to fly. Without Angia, and with the tomb restricting the number of soldiers, dealing with these assembled structures would have posed a serious challenge. Even though it was a golden treasure chest, it was a top-tier treasure chest of the type, with so many items. Feng Hao started checking the attributes of each item. Black iron open-faced helmet, leather X5, iron X3, iron plate X4. Description: the open-faced helmet can provide more comprehensive defense for the head. This was a good quality green armor item. Once mass-produced, it could substantially enhance defense. Whether it is for equipping soldiers or for sale, it could fetch a good price. Simple handsaw, Hard resilient wood x1, cast iron block x1, metal parts x2. Description: the appearance of the handsaw made logging and wood processing is much more convenient and simple. A handsaw, interesting. Sound transmitting shell. Category: tool. Ability: sound transmission. Description: a complicatedly crafted but extremely difficult to use one-way communication device. This wasn't the first time Feng Hao had seen a sound transmitting shell. Last time at the Manwha market, a slave trader gave him a sound transmitting shell to facilitate contact in the future. Sound transmitting shell comes in pairs. Speak into the mother shell, and it will one-way transmit the sound to the daughter shell. It is useful as a communication tool. Currently, the territory wasn't too vast. The only place he needed to have contact with was the pigmen village. Whenever he had to pass any information to the pigmen village, he used God's presence, passing his instructions through the station's skeleton soldiers and then disconnecting. It was much more convenient than using the sound transmitting shell. Stone Monster Assembly. Energy Core X1, Basic Head Part XL, Head Stone Armor X1, Basic Torso Part X1, Torso Stone Armor XL, Basic Arm Part X2, Arm Stone Armor X2, Basic Leg Part X2, Leg Stone Armor X2. Description: the construct troops serve as loyal guards, standing by like stone sculptures, and the moment they discover an enemy they initiate an endless assault. Minor damages can be repaired by accompanying engineers to continue the battle. Golden Mammoth Construct. Large Energy Core 1, Mammoth Basic Head Part 1, Mammoth Golden Face Armor 1, Mammoth Basic Torso Part 1, Mammoth Golden Body Armor 1, Mammoth Leg Parts 4, Mammoth Golden Leg Armor 4, Mammoth Tusks 2, Magic Cannon 1. Description: a construct modeled after a mammoth, its colossal size as formidable as a dragon. Its robust body can trample over all defenses, stepping into devastated prey groups, reaping the living. Minor damages can be repaired by accompanying engineers to continue the battle. The consecutive appearance of two constructs made Feng Hao frown slightly. These things, to Feng Hao, felt like robots put on armor. They possess strength and abilities that ordinary people can't compete with. In other words, the stone monster construct is already quite powerful. If constructed, it can greatly enhance the strength of the territory. But the materials required for construction are substantial. Trying to gather these materials is indeed a difficult task. As for the golden mammoth construct, in his mind, he can already imagine a giant mammoth covered in golden armor charging on the battlefield. Everywhere it goes, soldiers are flattened into minced meat, the defense walls are smashed down. Even just thinking about it felt exhilarating. The problem still lies in the production materials. With so many materials, it seems very difficult to obtain them. After checking the blueprint properties, the skeleton's search is also nearing the end. Everyone, loaded with spoils of war, slowly began to exit the tomb passage. Along the way, they plucked the nightstones from the first two areas and took them all away. They returned all the way to the entrance and climbed out using the rope ladder. By the time they left the pit, it was already near dusk. All the skeleton army, along with the newly joined wandering spirits, began to return to the territory. With Angia leading, Feng Hao directly ended the god's presence, waking up from the room in the territory. He got up from the bed and stretched his muscles and bones. His mood was still pretty good. Exploring this cave, he didn't really hold much hope. But unexpectedly, he stumbled upon an ancient tomb and received plentiful spoils from it. Not to mention the gold and silver treasures, these things are immaterial. In terms of blueprints alone, he obtained many kinds, including the Black Iron Knight Sword Manufacturing Blueprint, Blacksmith Shop Construction Blueprint, Wooden Mask Making Blueprint, Black Iron Open-Faced Helmet Making Blueprint, Simple Hand Saw Making Blueprint, Stone Monster Construct Making Blueprint, Golden Mammoth Construct Making Blueprint. Also, magic potions and healing potions. These items can help the overall strength of the territory make a substantial leap. The danger level of the Skullcrusher tribe will, in time, be significantly reduced. He left the stone tower. Era was teaching the other rabbit people some rules of the territory. Like a little teacher, she explained and demonstrated at the same time. Seeing Feng Hao come out, the rabbit people immediately got up to salute. "Master, shall I prepare dinner?" Era asked. Under normal circumstances, it would already be mealtime. But since Feng Hao was constantly using God's presence, Era had postponed the dinner time. Wait a bit for Angia to return. All right, master. Era continued to lecture the rabbit people on knowledge. Feng Hao walked to the side, listing today's rejuvenation springs for sale. The resources exchanged are also biased, prioritizing the acquisition of shadowstones. Then, a whole bunch of people were asking what shadowstone is and what it's used for. Now, the only thing hindering his construction upgrade progress is the shadowstone. Because of the Skullcrusher tribe's targeting. He also needs to hurry up and speed up the development progress. Finally, Angia led the team back to the territory. Returning to his territory, the skeleton soldiers sorted all the booty they carried. Some were sent to the warehouse, others to the storage places for basic supplies. Angia walked into the hall, casually tossing a bag filled with various blueprints and an energy core to Feng Hao. The latter received it and added it all to the Book of Lords. Compared to the jewels gleaned from the outside, these blueprints are the true rewards. That little ghost is waiting outside, should we let her in? Angia grabbed some fruit and began eating as she spoke. The wandering spirit from the ancient tomb had not officially joined the territory and was considered an outdoor soldier. With Angia's guidance, she could enter the territory. But if she wanted to enter the Lord's mansion, she needed Feng Hao's permission. Otherwise, it would be deemed as an attack. And she would come under attack by the soldiers within the territory. Let her in, said Feng Hao. Angia went to the door and led the wandering spirit inside. Not long after, Angia returned, followed by the drifting figure of a woman in spirit form. As she entered the Lord's hall, there was a look of surprise on the specter's face when she saw Feng Hao on the white bone throne. She was a bit slow to react. The Lord she had just seen was a skeleton, and now he appeared in human form. Wandering spirit, I am giving you a chance. Do you want to join our territory? If so, I can sign a contract with you. If not, you are free to leave. Feng Hao sat on his throne, his face solemn. Without any hesitation, the spirit hiked up her transparent dress a little and bowed slightly. Respected Lord, I am willing to join your territory. On the way here, Angia had not restricted her freedom, she was free to follow the procession. If she wanted to leave, she could do so at any time, and no one would stop her. By the time she made it to Feng Hao, she had already made her choice. Good. Feng Hao did not waste words, he directly opened the Book of Lords, chose a blank slave contract, and signed it with the ghost. Unlike contracts with living creatures, the specter did not need to imprint her hand in blood. After both parties agreed, an ash-blue fingerprint automatically appeared on the slave's space. The contractual process was complete. The specter, her current loyalty to you is 70 points. Perhaps because they are both from the undead camp, the specter's initial loyalty reached 70 points directly. What's your name? Feng Hao continued to ask. Being the first female ghost in the territory, he should at least know her name when they meet. My lord, I have no name. Please, could you give me one? The specter floated there as she spoke. Ah, this was a problem? Naming someone was a challenging task. Under her expectant gaze, Feng Hao directly said, You're a girl, so how about little you? I hope that you are carefree and untroubled in the future. Thank you, my lord. I really like this name. I will be called Little You from now on. Little You smiled slightly. However, her smile was slightly chilling on the face of a ghost. The specter Little You's loyalty to you has increased by 5 points. The current loyalty is 75 points. Feng Hao also gave a slight smile. Indeed, a pleasant conversation does wonders. Immediately, he began to look at Little You's stats. Spectre, Tier 3, Faction. Undead, Racial Traits. Undead, Ethereal, Vulnerable to Light. Skills. Spirit Possession, Dark Void, Unfinished Business. Innate Abilities. Junior Combat Mastery, Ethereal. All physical damage is reduced by 25%. Spirit Possession. The spirit can possess a living target for extended periods. Variables such as the target's rank, conscious awareness, intention, etc., affect the success rate of possession. Dark Void. Existing in the darkness, the spirit body is not restricted by terrain. Unfinished Business. Unfulfilled wishes from life. assist the spirit in completing its wishes. And there's a chance that it may recover its memories and evolve into a hero. Wishes. Gather her collection of 12 swords of absolution from when she was alive. Notes. They are bound here, neither eating nor sleeping, constantly reliving the agony of their impending death. As expected, this spirit is no ordinary undead. Not only does it possess many skills, but it also carries a unique storyline. If I can fulfill her wishes, there's a chance that she could evolve into a hero. Feng Hao looked back at the spirit and asked, Little Yu, do you know of the 12 swords of absolution? Little Yu's figure wavered and she responded curiously, are they weapons? I don't know much about weapons. It's probably due to a loss of memory. It seems like I will have to find the 12 swords of absolution myself. Alright then, welcome to the team. Familiarize yourself with the territory. I'll build you a house after dinner. From then on, you'll live there, said Feng Hao. Thank you, my lord, she said and then floated out of the manor. After Little Yu left, Era's dinner was ready. The two of them sat down to eat at the dining table. Feng Hao habitually opened the Book of Lords, browsing through it while eating. Angia was enthusiastic and narrated their adventure in the ancient tomb today to Era, while describing the origins of the female ghost in their territory. Era listened with wide eyes, both scared and filled with curiosity about the upcoming events. After dinner, Feng Hao exited the room. He happened to see Little Yu, floating in from afar. The sky was getting dark, and if it weren't for the streetlights lit by nightstone, it would have been challenging to spot her figure in the dark. My lord, Little Yu said softly. Most of the territory is inhabited by the skeletons. Little Yu had toured around the territory and familiarized herself with the surroundings. Well, there aren't many rules around the territory. Just stay away from the Viscera Museum, avoid hurting others. And feel free to reach out to me if there's any issue. As Feng Hao moved, he softly instructed. The corpse witch, Nelson standing in the territory was only second to Feng Hao's. Whether it was his knowledge or the ability to create skeleton heroes, both were enough for him to garner this treatment. As such, not interfering with Nelson's work was of great importance. As you command, my lord, I will remember your orders. Little Yu followed behind softly. The two of them, one leading the other, arrived at the area near the undead construction. I'll build your house here, is that okay with you? Feng Hao said. Even though spirits are undead and intangible, they still need a place of rest. Yes, my lord, Feng Hao nodded, opened the Book of Lords, found the housing section, and constructed directly. Bright lights flashed, and a wooden house appeared before Feng Hao. Then, he immediately upgraded the wooden house to level 4, transforming it into a 2-story building. Little Yu's loyalty towards you increased by 5 points, current loyalty is 80 points. After the construction of the house, Little Yu joyfully twirled in the air. Her loyalty also increased. It seems that a house indeed provides a sense of safety for women, an age-old truth. The storeroom is full of furniture. Look for what you need, and I will instruct the skeletons to move them into your room. The furniture in the territory was all scavenged from various tribes. They were unsellable and useless otherwise. Everything was piled up in the storage area. Thank you, my lord. Speaking of furniture, I noticed a wooden coffin in the corner of the storeroom. May I have it? Little Yu said. A coffin? Feng Hao frowned, trying to recall when there was a coffin in the storeroom. He then remembered that there indeed was a coffin. Beautiful corpse coffin. The exquisite corpse rejuvenation coffin was an item he had scavenged from Shadowwind Castle. No one had died in his territory, so it had never been put to use. Now that Little Yu mentioned it, Feng Hao remembered the beautifully crafted wooden coffin tucked away in a corner of the warehouse. You want that coffin? Feng Hao curiously asked. A broken stone coffin appeared in his mind. The stone coffin that housed Little Yu's body had collapsed halfway, damaging her corpse. Did her subconscious still want a coffin? Can I? If you have other uses for it, then never mind, Little Yu hurriedly explained. There's no other use for it, but what use would you have for this wooden coffin? Feng Hao asked. Sir, I am in a formless state, this wooden coffin would benefit me, Little Yu answered. All right, if it's useful to you then you can have it. The two of them went to the warehouse and had the skeleton warriors move some furniture into Little Yu's wooden cabin. Even though she only asked for the corpse rejuvenation coffin and nothing else, the room seemed empty without anything else in it. After all, many valuable items had been discovered in the ancient tomb. Exquisite corpse rejuvenation coffin, blue, category, corpse rejuvenation coffins. Description: a corpse rejuvenation coffin from the Eternal Night clan. Lying in it makes one instantly tranquil, and it is said to nourish the soul. It seemed that the property of nourishing the soul might benefit Little Yu. The skeletons then moved the corpse rejuvenation coffin into Little Yu's room. Little Yu floated directly into the coffin, even trying to lie down in it. It was as if she were floating in the middle of the coffin. It was unclear if this counted as getting in the coffin. Little Yu was delighted to receive the corpse rejuvenation coffin, and her loyalty to Fang Hao increased by 10 points, reaching 90 points. As for whether or not the corpse rejuvenation coffin would have nourishing effect on a wandering spirit, that was no longer important. With everything in order, Fang Hao left Little Yu's cabin. He went to the industrial district to construct the buildings from blueprints he had. Arriving at the blacksmith's forge, he opened the Book of Lords and flipped to the building page. Tier 1 Blacksmith's Workshop. Wood 600, stone 850, leather 300, hemp rope 200, iron 150. Construct. The construction time for a Tier 1 blacksmith workshop is 5 minutes. Among the Tier 1 buildings, it takes one of the longest durations. 5 minutes passed. The blacksmith workshop had been constructed and appeared before Fang Hao. Tier 1 Blacksmith's Workshop. Recruit available. Blacksmith. Blacksmith. Wriggling Spine 1. Note: you can recruit soldiers of the corresponding faction at this build site for iron forging and weapon repairs. Materials required for upgrading: wood 1200, stone 1500, leather 500, hemp rope 220, iron 200. Its function is the same as that of the tailor's shop. It allows you to recruit functional troops. The blacksmith workshop serves to recruit blacksmiths for iron forging and repairs. Having sufficient resources, Fang Hao directly upgraded it to level 4. When the blacksmith workshop reached level 5, the materials required change. 5th level blacksmith shop. Wood 5200, stone 7300, hardwood 750, stone brick 600, iron 500, metal parts 120, red flame essence 2. The consumption of materials increased exponentially.
Fortunately,
these materials could be obtained in abundance from the Rejuvenation Springs regional channel every day. This could support his building consumption. Upgrade. 5th level blacksmith's workshop. Recruit available. Blacksmith. Blacksmith. Wriggling Spine 1. Ability: Focus. Focus. Work efficiency plus 5%. Note: you can recruit troops of this building's affiliation here for the forging and repair of iron tools and weapons. Upgrade required: 6,000 lumber, 7,500 stone, 900 hardwood, 1,000 stone bricks, 600 iron, 220 metal parts, 4 red flame essence. Upgraded to level 5, the blacksmith shop has unlocked new capabilities. The blacksmith's work efficiency has increased by 5%. With the construction completed, the next step is to recruit blacksmiths. Blacksmith. Wriggling Spine 1, would you like to recruit? Confirm the recruitment. 100-fold amplification is triggered. 101 skeleton blacksmiths are recruited. A flash of light, 101 skeletons wearing shiny leather aprons and holding metal hammers appear in front of Fang Hao. They also have skeleton bodies. But compared to the tailor skeleton, the blacksmith skeleton is even larger. In their hollow pupils, a bluish soul flame is flashing. Skeleton blacksmith, Tier 1, faction. Undead. Racial traits: Undead, hollow skeleton, vulnerability to light. Skills: Focus, iron processing. Innate skills: Level 1 blacksmith mastery. Note: illuminated by a blazing fire, the blacksmith forges metal weapons and tools on the anvil. Iron processing: skillfully operates the forge, speeding up the smelting speed of the finished product. The forge is used to smelt iron into cast iron blocks. Now it's operated by the laborer skeletons. Afterward, it is handed over to the blacksmiths to operate, which will also improve the speed. Lord, we are at your service. The blacksmiths saluted in unison. Like the tailors, they all have independent souls, capable of speech and independent thought. Welcome everyone. Fang Hao smiled, then looked at one of the blacksmiths. What's your name? The skeleton blacksmith who was called stepped forward 2 steps and respectfully said, My lord, my name is Kulan. Good, Kulan, from now on you are in charge of the blacksmiths. I will be giving the tasks to you, and you will distribute them. Feng Hao said softly. Undead clan blacksmith Kulan's loyalty to you has increased by 10 points, current loyalty 90. Thank you for your trust, my lord. Kulan saluted once again. His expression didn't change much, but his loyalty increased by 10 points immediately. I'm going to build some forges, and when they're ready you'll take the place of the laborer skeletons. Repair the equipment in the warehouse as well, Feng Hao said, while walking and giving instructions. He immediately went to the forge construction area, increasing the number of forges to 50. With the previous experience from the tailor, he again built houses for these skeleton blacksmiths. Told them they could rest and arranged their work schedules. The loyalty of all the blacksmiths collectively increased by 5 points again. After finishing the construction of the blacksmith shop, Feng Hao started to return to the lord's mansion. While walking, a weak voice came from his side, My lord, kind human, please let me go. In the dim comber shrouded in darkness beyond the reach of the Nightstone's light, the Null leader, Claw Horror, Nigo, was imprisoned. The moonlight was hazy. In the black iron cage, Nigo was bound hand and foot, lying there with injuries all over his body. He was surrounded by hundreds of skeleton soldiers, all watching Nigo. Weakness and injuries made Nigo worry that these people had no intention of letting him live. They were just looking for a way to dispose of him. Do you have new information to tell me? Feng Hao didn't approach, but asked softly towards the darkness. No. As soon as Nigo answered, and saw Feng Hao turn around to leave, he hurriedly said, My lord, I would like to pledge loyalty to you. I can spy for you, really, I will infiltrate and explore all the information for you. Hearing Nigo's words, Feng Hao's step paused. Infiltrating as a spy, that's a good idea,